An emergency alert sounded, and all the people ran for cover to escape the danger that threatened them. The monsters began to seize territories and kill people while destroying everything that surrounded them. People were overwhelmed by danger, fear, and worry for themselves and their children. They hid in destroyed houses and hoped for the best. Monsters surrounded the city, and not allowing the unfortunate people to escape, they devoured them at every turn. No one could have thought that in the 21st century such a disaster would happen and monsters would destroy everything that was so dear to people. And only Naro looked at everything that was happening from the outside and thought how he could help humanity. The boy's cry and the dog's howl aroused great interest in the monster, and it seemed that the last moments remained before death. But Naro could not leave the defenseless kids in danger and instantly jumped from a height to save them. 1 second, a blow and the monster was dead because Naro made every effort to neutralize it. The main character carried out the boy with the dog in his arms because they were so afraid that they didn't even want to open their eyes and see other terrible creatures. A moment later, a huge hand with sharp claws reached towards the main character and the boy. Naro was not surprised by what was happening, and only his quick reaction helped him quickly navigate this situation. His eyes lit up with an icy flame, and a mark appeared on his face, which meant that the main character was ready to fight to the fullest. The guy moved so fast that no monster could defeat him in this terrible struggle between the forces of two worlds. Without fear, Naro, competently managing his power, would have defeated any monster in order to save people, because he understood that all these creatures had come for him. Of course, these ugly creatures could not win in the fight, so the main character tore them to shreds and they disappeared, leaving ashes. The guy already thought that it was all over, but another huge monster was waiting for him, which was 1,000,000 times larger than people. The legs of this creature destroyed the strongest roads and buildings. Everything crumbled from its enormous size and weight. But Naro understood perfectly well that all this was subject to his power, and instantly his entire body was covered in flames. His eyes were filled with anger and hatred. His fist could destroy everything on the way to victory. The main character dealt a piercing blow to the monster, causing a huge hole to form in the creature's chest, and he was defeated. Some black silhouette was watching all this from the side, and it was unclear why he was there at that moment. The whole body of the unknown person burned with a red flame. His eyes and marks on his face spoke of another force, not similar to the forces of Naro. Noticing him, the main character rushed to the high-rise with great speed to neutralize the enemy. Two completely different forces flew at each other, with the same goal of killing. The guys were already 30 centimeters away, and now everything had to be decided. But to find out who won, you need to find out how it all originated. 2 months earlier, Naro was an ordinary schoolboy who was constantly bullied by his classmates because he was quiet. On an ordinary sunny day, the main character walked calmly along the street without foreshadowing any danger. Suddenly, a huge dude named Ron swoops in from behind and knocks Naro off his feet with a blow to the head. Ron sat on top of the guy to take humiliating photos and assert himself at his expense, because he wanted to seem cool. The blonde freak grabbed the main character by the hair and made some terribly offensive insults to him. At lunch, everything was calm, and Naro could be alone, but the two guys walked along discussing the morning situation with Ron and Naro. One of the students was already ready to sit at the same table with our main character, when suddenly a friend pulled him back so that they could move to another table. The guys left, making fun of Naro and leaving him alone with his worries about that terrible situation. Naro felt so lonely, and it seemed like everyone was laughing at him and didn't want to talk to him. Every day, on a schedule, he took round black pills that looked like pepper, which his grandmother brought him. While taking pills at the water dispenser, Ron's friend runs up to Naro again from behind and hits him on the back with all his might. The poor guy is unable to harm anyone and falls to the floor from the impact, spilling all his pills. These vile freaks crushed the drugs, leaving Naro without even the opportunity to collect them from the floor. They stood and laughed at the poor guy, and with such actions they tried to seem cool, humiliating and beating other people. The face of one of the friends even twisted with laughter. It seemed so ugly that I wanted to hit him. For a few more minutes, they watched as the main character was in pain and could not take revenge on them. When suddenly a foot appeared on the threshold, seeing his friends near Naro, he decided to continue mocking him. Ron's eyes were filled with evil. The veins on his face were ready to burst, but it all brought him great pleasure. With his left foot, he struck the guy's neck with such speed that there was no option to shrug it off. Later, he punched Naro's stomach with his hand, which sent him flying into the lockers and clearly left a large dent. The guy was tied with chains. He could not step over himself and take out all the accumulated evil on other people. Of course, Ron was not enough. He wanted to hit the boy in the face, who was looking at him with evil eyes, but could not answer. At that moment, Luna appeared on the horizon. Such a strict, beautiful, and neat girl. Seeing her, all the guys went crazy. Ugly Ron almost dropped his jaw when he saw this beautiful lady of his heart, with whom he had been unrequitedly in love for so long. Having thrown all the dirty tricks out of his head, he tried to show Lilong that he was not to blame for the fight with his classmate. His friends were also delighted with the girl, because she was as beautiful as a May Day. It was as if there was no one in the room. Only Luna looked at the beaten Naro, as if she wanted to protect him. Naro, without saying a word, got up and walked in an unknown direction, and the girl looked at him as if sympathetic. The guy climbed to the very edge of the roof and watched the students play football. He even had the thought of jumping, but something stopped him. A sudden SMS from Grandma, and all the bad thoughts went away, because Naro realized for whom he needed to live and not give up. Sweet memories surfaced in his memory, how he was playing around at home, and his grandmother looked at him and laughed. The main character replayed in his head all the moments from his very childhood, and even now Naro understands that his grandmother will support and understand him, because for her he remains the same little grandson. Out of nowhere, Chan appeared on the roof, concerned about the condition of his best friend Naro. Chan thought that the main character wanted to jump off the roof because of his problems, and after talking with him, hoped for his prudence. Naro quickly came to his senses and decided to go back to class for a lesson, because life does not end there. As soon as the guy entered the class, Lee Luna watched him, because she cared what happened to him. Naro sat down at his desk, lowering his head on it. He thought about further actions in life, because now it seemed that the world was collapsing. Suddenly, classmates began to talk loudly about something important. It seems they received photographs from the hike, and they were surprised by what they saw. One photo showed an ugly, big-eyed monster in the castle window, looking straight into the camera during a photo shoot. As it turned out, all this was true. In that castle there lived a terrible red monster who got out of there and went to kill. This creature was so ugly, huge red eyes, teeth like 300 sharpened knives, and no nose. Coming home from school, Naro looked at himself in the mirror and didn't know how Granny would react to his bruises. A sudden knock on the door confused the guy. Apparently, Grandma had come to call him for dinner. Having not come up with anything better, the main character hid under the blanket so that Grandmother would not see him in this state. Grandma Lena was concerned about the situation, because she was very worried about her grandson. As soon as the door slammed, Naro emerged from under the blanket to check if Lena had left. The grandmother did not stress herself out, and, to distract herself, decided to do the laundry. At this time, a silhouette stood on the street, as if waiting for some opportune moment. A man drove right up to the house in a postal truck. He was very tired after work and did not notice anything unusual. Suddenly, instead of a harmless silhouette, a terrible monster with eyes as black as an abyss attacks the courier. Naro lay face down in the pillow and thought about what to do, because anyway, he couldn't appear in front of Grandmother in this form. The grandmother quietly called out to her grandson to open the door, because the intercom was bursting with melody. The guy slowly walked towards the door, although he had no idea who might come there. It turned out that the courier was calling through the intercom, and very convincingly asked the main character to open the door. Without ordering anything, Naro still opened the door and didn't think that everything could end badly. At this time, the boy went to the shower to somehow wash away the feeling of beating and pain. A man in uniform entered the house unnoticed, covering his face and pretending to be a delivery courier. It turned out that the monster stole the body of a defenseless courier in order to easily enter the house. A hand with swollen veins came right out of the monster's mouth and attacked Grandma. The grandmother fell straight to the floor, hitting her back against a cabinet that stood against the wall. The ugly creature grabbed Granny by the neck, leaving her no chance to escape. Suddenly, marks appeared on Lena's face, which meant that she had some kind of powers. The grandmother towered over the monster, tying him with red threads so that he could not get out. The monster squeezed him with threads so that he could not use his powers and capabilities. There was anger on Granny's face, her eyes turned red like Mars, and red lines appeared all over her face. Naro was calmly washing himself in the shower when he suddenly heard some noise and decided to check what it could be. At that moment, Lena tried to crush the face of the monster who dared to attack her with her threads. The boy turned off the water and decided to see what was happening in the apartment. The grandmother was very concerned about her grandson, which is why she was ready to kill any monster. The main character, looking out of the shower, did not see how grandmother, having the strength, destroys the monster. The head of this creature shatters into small pieces after a fight with Granny Lena. And grandmother, as if nothing had happened, continued to go about her business so that her grandson would not suspect anything. They couldn't talk properly because they kept secrets from each other. While jogging in physical education class, Naro felt some kind of weakness. He tried to run without paying attention to anything, but still understood that something unusual was happening. The teacher did not immediately notice that someone had fallen behind and turned around to see the guy lying on the ground. The main character's eyes were only slightly open. He tried to get up but still lost consciousness. He woke up alone in the ward, not understanding what could have happened and where he ended up. Naro had a severe headache that he still couldn't come to his senses. Looking out the window, he was very surprised, because the whole sky was an unusual red color, and awakened some memories in the guy. Having more or less come to his senses, Naro decided to call Grandma to let him know that everything was okay. Granny, packing things into boxes, told the boy that they needed to move again. The main character only remembers that they moved all the time in childhood, and he always had to change schools. Classmates made fun of Naro, and some could not remember him at all, and he was already moving to another school. His whole life was connected with moving, and Grandma didn't say what it was connected with. But the guy still had no choice. And so the main character returned home at sunset when the sky was splashing with bright colors. The grandmother met her grandson near the window, each time rejoicing that everything was fine with him, and he was safe. There was no other choice. It was necessary to pack up and move to another house, where it would be safer. And somewhere nearby, huge red paws crawl out of a mountain of unnecessary rubbish. No one notices how a terrible monster crawled out of the mountain of garbage, because the guard fell asleep and cannot warn anyone. The monster himself tried to sneak somewhere unnoticed in order to pass himself off as a harmless person. Going out onto the road, he saw a truck and he liked the driver's skin so much that he decided to steal it. This creature scared the driver so much that he crashed into a fence right on the road. A bunch of identical monsters surrounded the truck and stole the man's skin. The monsters, having united into one, drove up to the house of Naro and Lena, and there was a guard with a cat nearby who did not notice anything unusual. The cat, sensing something bad, scratched the man severely and ran away from that place. The monster in human form did not attract attention, because everything seemed absolutely normal. But at that moment, Grandma Lena suspected something and began to rush Naro to urgently leave the house. Seeing her grandson out of the house, she only wanted him not to be in any danger because monsters were very dangerous for him. The guy was very worried about Ba's behavior, but nevertheless, he listened and went to school. Right at the entrance, he saw a crowd of couriers. The boy could not understand where they were all going. The monsters were dressed as couriers, which is why the main character smelled their strange smell. Naro watched the men, but he couldn't figure out what was going on. Having entered the elevator with a neighbor whose eyes were terribly watery from the smell, suspicions arose. And at that moment, a crowd of monsters with red eyes was heading to Lena's house. Grandma Lena was no longer ready. Her eyes burned with a bright flame of anger. Already on the street, looking into the empty van, Naro became even more suspicious of these couriers. Behind him, a monster fell from the balcony, which Grandma Lena threw from there. The guy, seeing the fallen man, began to sound the alarm and call the security for help. The main character himself ran as fast as he could to save Granny. He was sure that they had come to her. The elevator was moving very slowly, as if someone was holding it, and there was simply no patience left for it. Naro quickly ran up the stairs because it was faster than waiting for the elevator. A crowd of monsters with burning eyes approached Grandma Lena, ready to harm her. Granny, using her power, was ready to kill them all so that they would not touch her grandson. The monster hits Lena in the face and she flies several meters into the wall. These creatures begin to feel powerful and become more confident, changing their appearance to a more frightening one. The creature's face took on a gray tint, revealing a sinewy face, red eyes, and sharp fangs and claws. With her threads, Grandma grabbed the freak by the neck, trying to rip his head off and kill him. Lena was stronger than any monster. She delivered painful blows to the head, confusing the monster. Granny seemed to feel calm while killing the freaks, because in this way she was trying to protect both herself and her grandson. Having tied the terrible monster with threads, he had no way to get out of this trap. Naro at this time tried to quickly reach the house to save Ba, because he did not know about her strength. The monster had already come to an end. His veins had swelled so much that it was clear that there was very little left. Out of breath, the guy still ran to his door and tried to open the door with fear. Pulling the handle, it was impossible to open the door, and the guy simply did not know what to do and how to help Lena. For a long time, he could not even break down the door and was already thinking about his further actions. It turned out that Grandmother was holding the handle very tightly from the inside, not allowing the door to open. Naro tried in every possible way to reach Ba, but nothing worked. The monster wounded Granny right in the stomach while she was distracted by the unfortunate door. But she still had the strength to finish off the vile freak, and she pressed his head right against the door. And near the house, near a tree, traces of blood were found, which aroused suspicion among the guard. The monster that fell from the balcony did not die, and decided to take revenge on Lena, and began to climb the balconies. Having reached the desired balcony, he noticed a guy who was trying in every possible way to open the door. The freak grabbed Naro by the neck, trying to strangle him and thereby hurt Ba. He was overcome with joy that he would be able to manipulate Lena through the boy. Entering the house, Grandmother could not believe her eyes when the monster strangled him and threatened her. Intimidating, he wanted to gouge out the eye with his sharp claws, but only scratched it until it bled. And then Granny got angry, releasing all her anger to kill this ugly monster. Naro was very surprised. He had no idea that Grandma had any powers. To free himself, the boy bites the monster's hand, tearing out a piece of his skin. The main character immediately falls to the floor after being freed by the monster. Blood flies out of the guy's mouth, which means he has been seriously injured. The grandmother, greatly frightened, rushed to her grandson, and the monster at that moment was on alert, waiting for this. Right in front of the main character, the terrible creature hits Lena so hard that she falls in pain. Naro's eyes were filled with fear and pain that he had lost his beloved Granny. He sat covered in blood with the hand of a monster, and did not understand how all this was even possible. But grandmother was very strong, and when she woke up, she began to act to save Naro. She tied the monster up and down with threads so that he would definitely die. And Naro at that moment was lying with a wound on the floor in a pool of blood, with the desire to help grandmother. The monster only fights and is not ready to make concessions, because for him, the main thing is the result. Losing consciousness, Naro plunges into memories from his childhood, which was so recent. He recalls how on the playground he beat up a boy who bullied him and called him offensive names. At this time, the neighbor, seeing this, begins to separate and scold Naro for his bad behavior and upbringing. Because of this, the boy began to cry, because no one could understand what was in his soul. Granny, having dealt with the monster, sat next to her grandson, holding his head and worrying. The grandmother cried a lot and blamed herself for what happened, because she tried in every possible way to protect her grandson from this. She sat pressed against his chest and sobbed from internal pain, because she understood that there was only one way to save him. Using her powers and taking the lotus position, Lena began to seem to meditate. It was as if she transferred her strength and her energy to Naro in order to revive him. In the same way I come to life when you, dear YouTube viewer, subscribe to my channel and leave your comment. This is very important for me. Enjoy your viewing. The grandmother said goodbye to her grandson because there was no turning back and he should live a long and happy life. Naro rose up. He was lifted by his own power, which he owned but did not know about it. Grandmother Lena did everything she could, and having transferred all of herself to her grandson, dissolves into ashes. Naro came to his senses. He felt terrible and did not understand what had happened and where Granny had gone. A couple of weeks later, he was still looking for Ball. Practically did not leave the police, as long as they did something. The guy drew a portrait of a monster who was trying to kill them, but it sounded very stupid, since no one knew that they existed. The investigator was very angry because he thought that the boy was playing jokes on him because of these creatures. But only another worker tried to calm both the man and the boy so that he would go home and just wait. Squeezing this unfortunate piece of paper with the image of a monster, Naro became very angry at such work of people. I felt very lonely when I walked home and remembered old moments from my life. It was necessary to live on, study, and take care of the house, look for grandmother. But still Naro was left alone in this world, and he felt it very well and did not know how to continue to live because there was no longer any point. Arriving at school and talking with the director, he decided to return to school and continue living in peace. Chan was very glad to see his friend return because it was completely unexpected. At the very first physical education lesson, Naro felt somehow strange. He ran and didn't seem to feel tired, trying to understand what was happening to him. During class, he thought a lot about himself, about his grandmother, and about how monsters ended up in this world. Walking along the school corridor, a black silhouette followed the guy. He was scared and decided to take him to a deserted place. The boy walked without looking back because he didn't know what was going to happen. It turned out to be Luna. She looked beautiful with her orange eyes and easy hairstyle. Luna followed the main character to talk to him and find out what happened in his family. Naro didn't want to tell everyone about his story, so he didn't talk to the girl for long. Luna, walking along the corridor behind her classmate, still tried to cheer the guy up so that he would not despair. Naro didn't want to offend the lady, but he needed to be alone, so he escaped through the window. Immediately after the guy left, Ron and his friends came down from the second floor. Ron, seeing his love, wanted to approach her, but did not dare because Luna rejected him. Luna was only thinking about Naro at that moment. She was truly worried about him. Naro at that moment went for a walk along the deserted streets to think about what happened to him in class. By chance, passing by the store, the guy saw a woman who needed help. The stranger was sitting on the cold tile and was sad because she was very tired, and it was difficult for her to cope with work. She sat on the ground for a long time, sorting the boxes into their original position. Naro decided to help the woman so that she could finish her work faster and go home to rest. In the face of this lady, he saw his grandmother. They were so similar that he was very worried. While the stranger was sorting out the boxes, the guy was taking them into the cart, securing them so that they would not fall. At that moment, the main character's classmates came to a nearby store to buy cigarettes. Luna worked at this store, and they tried to force her to sell them tobacco. According to the law, these guys were not allowed to buy cigarettes due to their age, so the girl was forced to refuse. Blonde John began to threaten Luna, but she was not taken aback and kicked them out of the store. The guys, leaving the store, called the saleswoman names in every possible way, although they hoped that she would be the one who would help them buy cigarettes. Seeing a woman outside the store, they thought why not ask her to buy them cigarettes. John handed the money to the woman, hoping that she would agree to their offer. They were glad that they had the opportunity to purchase what they needed. But the woman reacted harshly to their request and began shouting at the boys to go home and study homework. The guys didn't like it, and they started kicking the boxes that the stranger had been sorting for so long. At this point, Naro carried the cartons into the cart and was heading back to the store. He was very surprised to see his classmates, not understanding what they had forgotten there. When the main character realized that they were disturbing and insulting the woman, he became very angry. Approaching the lady, he reassured her, saying that she was not in danger, and, having completed the work, sent her home. And later the guys had a conflict because they pestered a defenseless woman. They wanted to deal with Naro, and so the blonde boy John grabbed him by the collar of his shirt. John led him by the neck into a deserted corner to the trash cans, where no one would see them. A classmate threw Naro to the ground so that he hit the brick wall hard. During the fight, the main character thought that he couldn't stand up for himself and allowed everyone to beat him up. One guy made sure that no one accidentally walked in and saw their fight. At some point, Naro's power manifested itself and his eyes lit up blue. The guy managed to grab John's leg with his sinewy hand and throw him onto his back. The main character, getting to his feet, continued to hold his classmate's leg like that until he realized his mistakes. Naro's face changed dramatically. A blue mark appeared on his cheeks, which burned with an icy flame. John's friend, seeing everything that was happening, immediately rushed to save him. He was very angry and had no idea how it happened that Naro showed strength. The main character, not expecting this from himself, quickly disappeared from the scene of the fight. He went to the park and sat on a swing for a long time, thinking about what was happening in his life. The guy looked at his hands and didn't understand what had changed after the fight with the monster. The next day at school, everyone in the class was just talking about their classmate's fight. Naro couldn't understand whether he was ashamed or whether he did everything right in this situation. When John's best friend came to class, he looked at the boy harshly, as if threatening him. And the main character's best friend, Chan, was only glad that his friend was coming to his senses. In Naro's memories of yesterday, only the face of John's friend and his hatred for him. He thinks that his power can cause serious harm to someone, and he understands that his classmate is also afraid and therefore will not approach him. And it seemed like Naro wanted to apologize, but he realized in time that there was no need to do this, because he himself had always been a punching bag. Walking down the street one evening, the main character met a man with a white dog. The dog reacted very strangely to the guy and began to sniff him. Naro tried not to provoke the dog and simply quickly ran past them, and the dog seemed to have broken loose and began to bark loudly and bare its teeth. When the guy ran away, the owner began to calm his dog, not understanding what had happened. The main character decided to go to a construction site to test his full strength. He grabbed the heavy iron armature with his hands, thinking that he would be able to lift it. Naro was straining a lot and was already disappointed that it wasn't working, but he decided to try again. A moment later, a blue mark appeared on his face, which showed the manifestation of his power. Naro was able to lift the iron above himself, which can only be lifted by a crane. The next day, John came to school on crutches with a sore leg. Together with his friend, they discussed Naro and thought about how he managed to harm John. The blonde boy's best friend wanted to take revenge on his classmate and was thinking through a plan for revenge. John himself decided not to do this, because he did not know what Naro was capable of and was afraid. During lunch, Ron decided to take food from the students to share with Li Long. When Ron saw her, he waved with a huge smile and called her to his table. Luna ignored his proposal and sat down at the dining table with Naro. When the students saw the main character and Luna sitting together, they thought that something was wrong. Ron, with great anger and hatred, continued to eat someone else's chicken. The boy suspected that his lover and the main character were having an affair. After lunch, Ron decided to talk to his friends and pinned John against the wall so that he would tell him what happened with Naro. At that moment, Luna appeared, distracting them from their conversation. Luna wanted this company to leave Naro behind and live their lives without them. Ron was just glad that his love was finally talking to him no matter what. Later, the main character received a message in which there was an offer to go out near the school for a conversation. When Naro arrived, everyone thought that he would lose the fight and end up in the hospital. Ron was 100% confident in his abilities, and besides, he wanted to show off in front of the moon. There was a tense moment when the guys got too close to each other. On the sidelines, Chan was worried about his friend and was afraid that something bad would happen. When the main character struck the first blow to the stomach, the opponent's face became all distorted. From a strong blow, Ron flew to the ground and hit his head on a stone. John understood that this would happen, so he was not surprised that his friend would lose. There were huge bruises on Ron's face, and one of his teeth instantly flew out of his mouth. Classmates were very surprised by what was happening because Naro had never won. But the main character did not stop and continued to beat his opponent to take out his grievances. The guy's eyes were already burning with a blue flame, and it seemed that he could kill Ron. Nero looked into Ron's eyes and realized that he needed to not overdo it and stop in time. Li Long was not in the crowd, as she was watching the whole scene from the roof of the school. In the evening, Naro went home alone. He did not understand how to control himself, because there could be irreversible consequences. Chan came across, who was delighted with the fight and surprised by his friend. Approaching the house, the main character felt that there was someone in it, but did not show it. At home, in his and Grandma's things, the monster quietly rummaged through the closets looking for the key. Nero thought whether he should go into the house, and whether he could cope with this freak, and still decided to try. Having opened the door, the monster heard about this and hid so that no one would see him. When Nero entered the house and wanted to drink water, the monster was about to attack him. This terrible creature had red, terrifying eyes and a green, ragged body. The main character at that moment quietly bent down to the flower, and grabbed the pot and threw it straight into the monster's face. Nero did not know if he could defeat him, and the monster did not smell the guy and thought that he was an ordinary person. The creature threw the boy against the wall, assuming that it would quickly deal with him. The main character suddenly grabbed the monster's hand, which was unexpected for him. When Nero attacked the monster's arm was cracked in half by Nero's powerful force. Out of fright, the monster ran out the window so that the guy would not have time to catch up with him. The eyes of the main character were filled with flame and courage, because he showed what he was capable of, first of all, to himself. And Nero was not going to give up. He met a monster around the corner to finish him off. The guy grabbed an umbrella and wanted to throw it in order to destroy the creature with one blow. The umbrella pierced the monster's chest, but he was still conscious at that moment. When Nero looked into his eyes, it was as if he had lost all his fears. The boy continued to finish off the beast with his umbrella until the bitter end. He took out his anger on behalf of his grandmother, and was always ready to do anything for her. His entire body was covered with some unknown force which was called icy flame. Nero did not believe that he could kill someone, because he could never afford such a thing. When the monster evaporated into ash, the guy sat alone in the rain and thought about what was happening. A mother and child approached him and asked if he needed any help. The main character, without answering anything, scared the child and ran away in an unknown direction. In the heavy rain, he ran with new feelings that he had never experienced in his life. At the same moment, in the other world, the body of some creature climbed out of the water. A creature without an arm swam ashore, which Naro beat, and he was able to go to another world. Arriving at the castle, they were already waiting for the monster to find out the most important thing: whether he had found the key. The monster on his knees talked about what the boy had done to him, and about his strange power. The commanders were unhappy that the creature returned without results. One of the main ones in their sect was Chen, a strong man who did not spare anyone. He simply tore off the monster's head and threw it on the floor, without any regrets or thinking about anything. He looked miserable, which is probably why he was so ruthless. Chen always dressed in all black, showing his evil. He always wore a black cloak and black shoes. The next day, Naro received a call from the police and he immediately ran there. The camera showed Grandma going somewhere and then suddenly disappearing. The main character was scared. He had no face and no understanding of what was happening. He guessed what kind of place it was, but the police said that too much time had passed since that moment and it was not worth going there. The guy, without listening to anyone, ran to the place where his grandmother was on camera. He came across a market, which he wandered around in search of at least some information. Nero asked passers-by and workers if they had seen Grandma Lena. The main character himself was concerned about this strange and incomprehensible situation. When he approached a man's shop, he asked him about Granny. The man reluctantly turned and looked at the boy and muttered something under his breath and turned away. A man named Khan went into another room behind the curtain, assuring that he would return. When Naro realized that he had escaped, he immediately ran after him in order to catch him in time. The guy quickly caught up with Khan, saying that he would not harm him and came only of his own free will. He was about to hit him, but Khan stopped in time to listen to him. Naro showed him the pills that grandmother had given him for many years. The man said that he gave pills to his ba so that Naro's powers would not manifest and he would be safe. The boy told Khan that grandma was missing and he couldn't find her. And then the man said that his grandmother had once worked with him for the king. She was strong, but at some point she was forced to leave there in order to protect the child. And just recently, when Naro was still little, she found Han and asked him for pills. After listening to the story, the main character could not stand it and cried because of such a sad story. The man himself understood that someday this would happen, and Lena would die at the hands of monsters. All this only gave Naro more strength and a desire to take revenge on everyone. At the same time, in the other world, the captain and Chen flew out on monsters on an important matter. They flew on ugly creatures as if through worlds returning somewhere. Arriving home, Naro began to collect grandmother's things into boxes and study them. Seeing the photo together, the guy could not resist and plunged into kind and good memories. His hair slightly covered his eyes, which were filled with tears of pain. The next day, the main character decided to appear at school to quickly recover. All his classmates, as never before, greeted him and smiled with a pure smile. In the guy's office, he was met by Chan, who was in a good mood and jumped on Naro's shoulders. Luna passed by the guys, captivating them with her scent. Luna suggested the main character take a walk, and Chan happily said that his friend agreed. Naro liked Luna's proposal, and Jungkook was happy to see that his friend was doing better. And in the next office sat a beaten and angry Ron, who wanted to take revenge on Naro. Ron ordered his friends to bring Jung to talk to him. In the toilet, Ron pinned the guy against the wall and threatened to beat him, if he didn't call his friend to the right place. Chan refused, and then the classmate hit him in the face with all his might. When the boy fell to the floor, Ron continued to kick him. He tried to force Chan to do as he wanted, because Naro would always listen to his friend. Ron grabbed the guy by the hair and tried to clearly convey that next time it would be even worse for him. Chan sat with bruises and tears and did not know what to do in this situation. Naro thought that his friend had been gone for a long time, and this seemed suspicious to him. The main character stood up and walked towards the door to find Chan. He met him at the door and was surprised that he was all dirty and bruised. The guy took his friend to the medical center to get help. Naro understood that all this was because of him, and promised to protect Chan in difficult moments. Chan told his friend that Ron and his company were waiting for him near the school in the garage, but he would not want Naro to go there, because it is very dangerous for him. Arriving at the office, Naro met with Luna, who wanted to talk to him. The guy said that now is not the time for this, and maybe they will talk later. Approaching the garage, the angry Ron was already waiting for him there, demanding to go into the room. Entering the garage, some friend of Ron attacked Naro from behind with a bat. At this time, many unknown people in black coats came to school. They frightened students with just their ugly appearance and terrible behavior. Thanks to his quick reaction, Naro managed to get out from under the bat and fly at the enemy from above. A fierce fight broke out between classmates, which could not lead to anything good. With angry faces and sticks, they were ready to attack Naro, just to curry favor with Ron. But Naro was stronger than all of them combined, so after a couple of minutes, all the guys were lying unconscious on the floor. Ron, grabbing the bottle and smashing it on the edge of the table, began to threaten the main character with violence. While monsters were strangling people at school at this time, Ron distracted Naro from truly important matters. These terrible creatures intimidated the poor students and killed them at every turn. They ran around the school with happy faces because killing brought them pleasure. Chan heard some sounds in the medical center and decided to turn around and see what was happening. Turning around, he saw a huge monster in a black robe, who was reaching out to him with his hand. When Ron and Naro arrived at school, they saw monsters, and how people were trying to escape from them. But Ron wanted to finish his plan and swung the rosette from the bottle to defeat his opponent. He was already ready to kill him, but something still stopped him in this situation. Suddenly, the principal heard about the screams and decided to look out the window to find out what was going on at the school. In the window, the director saw something terrifying. Monsters were killing innocent children. They were ugly with huge claws and sinewy arms, bald with a large nose and sharp teeth. When Luna found out what was happening, she didn't believe it at first until she heard screams. Luna quickly ran out of the classroom as she knew that Naro was in danger. While she was running, the monster managed to reach her face with his terrible hand and grab her. But Luna, using her superpower, quickly neutralized the monster. The girl wrapped her threads around his neck, cutting off his breathing and strangling him to death. The poor students were lying in the corridor almost on top of each other, as if in a mass grave. One of the monsters, noticing Naro, was ready to pounce and eat him alive. The guy quickly got his bearings and ran along the corridor, and the monster rushed after him as fast as he could. Ron was waiting for the main character in the hideout, who wanted to kill him with a sharp bottle. But Ron didn't have time to do what he wanted, because a huge hand grabbed his head from behind. The monster, with all its strength, almost crushed the guy's head and pressed him against the wall. He absolutely did not understand that it was not Naro. The main thing for them was simply to kill. The main character hit the monster on the head with all his might, so that he would hardly be able to get up. His eyes already lit up with an icy flame, and he was ready to win. With one blow, the guy killed the monster and his body turned to ashes. Ron's eyes showed fear, but it was unclear what he was more afraid of, Naro or monsters. Immediately, another ugly creature flies out from the next office. Luna kicks and punches monsters with all her might, thanks to her strength. Naro was completely surprised by what was happening. He did not know that the girl had power, just like him. At that moment, Luna kicked Ron in the face, taking revenge on him for beating Naro. The main character wanted to ask the girl where she got her powers and whether she knew about him, but there was no time to talk. A whole crowd of monsters was approaching them. Luna ordered Naro to hide, because she knew very well that they had come for him. The guy lured them into the hall in order to catch them and Luna there and kill them. They came up with a cunning plan so that the monsters would not realize that they had fallen into a trap. With one action, the main character killed several monsters at once, and all this thanks to teamwork. When the girl joined him, He saw her working with threads and killing creatures. And these bastards continued to climb through the windows to attack Naro. The main character and the girl were surrounded. There were so many monsters that it seemed impossible to cope with them. But a moment later, a huge monster appears, several times larger than one person. All the monsters that were in the hall united into one creature, and Luna tried to outwit him. The moon with its power was capable of killing not only such a creature, but also an entire crowd. While she was distracting him, Naro hid on the ceiling so that he would not be found there, plotting some kind of plan. He held on to the iron bars with all his strength to tear them off and kill the monster. Chan could no longer be saved. The monster killed him and took over his body to take revenge. Meanwhile, Luna and Naro defeated the huge monster. The monster released Chan with a wounded hand into the hall to his best friend to kill both of them. The main character quickly ran up to Chan to find out how he was feeling and if everything was okay with him. But at this time, a huge black body pierced the best friends through and through. Chan and Naro were lying on the floor and looking at each other's faces with a wound right in the middle of their chest. Since the main character had powers, it was not easy to kill him, so Naro survived. And the black monster was very surprised by this, and did not know what else awaited him ahead. Naro's face became covered with anger and an icy flame that enveloped everything around him. His whole body burned, and he controlled the ice, striking them. At this moment, Li Long ran to the wounded in order to save them in time. After this, Naro woke up in the morning alone in a strange bed and an incomprehensible house. He raised his head and looked around the room because he did not understand where he was. Walking around the house, the guy looked into some secret door and saw a bunch of weapons there. Just in case, the guy decided to take with him an axe that he liked. Hearing some sounds, the main character swung his axe to deliver a decisive blow. Luna approached him. He spent the night at her house and did not remember about it. Naro was very surprised by what was happening because it was as if his memory had been lost. The main character began asking questions to the girl to find out about her and what was happening yesterday. Naro thanked the moon for saving him from death because he was already weak at that moment. The guy took all his strength into his fist and decided to ask what happened to his friend Chan. Luna replied with a smile on her face that he was safe and under medical supervision. Naro didn't believe it. He was very happy and relieved. And the main thing that the guy wanted to know was who the moon itself was. The girl avoided answering because she understood that he was not yet ready for this. Since Luna did not talk about herself, the main character decided to leave, since he could not be in the same room with a stranger. The classmate was not ready to let the guy go home and set the conditions that if he defeated her, he could go wherever he wanted. Naro was in bad condition, so he could not win and was very worried because he did not understand why the monsters were hunting him. Luna promised the guy to protect him all the time and protect him from various creatures. The girl's lunch burned down and she and Naro went to prepare a new one. The main character prepared a delicious dinner to treat the lady and still learn something more. At this moment in the M1 society, people were watching the video of yesterday's fight and wanted to meet Naro. While Luna and the guy were communicating, a butterfly flew past them, as if it was watching and eavesdropping on them. The guy was worried, and then the girl promised to take him to the captain in the M1 society to clarify the situation. Having arrived in a car with a driver, Naro still did not understand that everything was so serious. Before entering, Luna read out some lines to get inside. Entry using a key made from fingerprints and palms. All this really surprised the main character. A bunch of personnel tinkering with unknown tests and biomaterials. And entering the secret door with Aaron, who also had her own superpower. Entering the room, Aaron took out her weapon to show it to the guy. The girl quickly collected the gun and pointed it towards the main character. The weapon was near his face. Luna was very scared and did not understand what was happening. Naro, without having time to get scared, quickly grasped what he needed to do, but did not want to show his strength to the end. The gun was already closer and closer, but the guy could not strike back. The boss was watching all this from his office. He wanted to check the boy's reaction. The main character knocked the weapon out of Aaron's hands with one swing of his foot, which she did not even expect. Then the girl took hold of the chain with sharp discs to look at his further actions. She began to swing them, but Naro was still able to find his bearings. Luna quickly grabbed Aaron's hands, because the guy was still weak and something could happen. The girl and the main character went to the boss's office to meet each other. The main thing was only interested in why the boy was hiding his strength. To prove Naro's worth, the captain sent him to fight some member. Walking along the corridor, the main character and Luna talked about Aaron, that she seemed sad and cruel. At the same time, Luna told about herself how she got into M1 and became a fighter. Meanwhile, in the other world, Chen and the captain were thinking about how to get to another world. They were ready to consider different options, just to find the key to open the portal. Returning home, Naro decided to visit Han, and it turned out that he was looking for him. And then the main character said that he had moved out of his house and would like to learn how to use his powers in some other way. Then Khan said that only practice would help him to learn to control his body and energy. Naro wanted to learn this quickly, but the man told him to be calm and come after sunset. Coming and leaving Luna, The guy did not tell her anything, although she was very worried about him. She was very angry that she was protecting him, but he didn't share anything with her and disappeared somewhere. After sunset, the boy came to Khan to train, but he was very confused by the place. It turned out that there was an additional hatch inside to go deeper. Han showed Naro the secret room in which he would train. Going down the stairs, the guy realized that the room was similar to the room from the Moon's house. Khan immediately decided to check how strong the main character was and whether he could pass all the tests. The man tried to strike with his cane, but Naro dodged them. The guy couldn't fight back, so the man decided to anger him so as to get a return. Khan attacked the boy because without the ability to attack, you cannot become a real warrior. The man began to poison Naro with memories of his failure to protect Grandma. Suddenly, a mark appears on the main character's neck. Khan was able to anger him. Naro decided to take responsibility for grandmother's death and become stronger by learning to attack. When Khan saw the icy breath, he could not believe his eyes, and then details from Lena's life were revealed. The man told a story from the past when people fell into the world of monsters and were crushed due to the fragility of their bodies. But the king decided to leave one woman and ended up falling in love with her, and they had a child, half human, half monster. Han realized that Lena brought Prince Naro, the son of the king of monsters, to this world. The man decided to see the boy's strength. It turned out to be so raging that it was ready to break out of him. Naro's power was evil, vicious, and thanks to this practice, he learned to control it. Suddenly, the power surged out of the main character. He looked like a monster, but he wanted to use it all for good. After such a surge, the guy lay on the floor and thought whether it was worth showing such strength to the world. After all, one can use demonic power while concealing the distinctive features of power. But Khan said that first you need to make the power your own. For this, you need to learn how to control it. One of the next tests was the fight against the unreal, against the illusion of inner strength, and the guy was ready for this. Suddenly, everything was filled with smoke. It was hard to breathe and you couldn't see anything. The main character, at the level of smell, felt that something was approaching him and, opening his eyes, saw a huge fist that threw him into the rock. Khan understood what difficult trials would be for Naro, but he allowed him to fight the embodiment of his power. A huge ice monster, it seemed so huge for the guy. This was his inner strength. The main character was already ready to be the first to attack. His eyes were burning with hatred and interest. Naro did not expect that the monster would be so strong and for a while plunged into memories where he lay helplessly and he did not like it. He no longer wanted to become that helpless sack and was ready to finish everyone off. His anger could increase his strength and then the guy could kill himself in this fight. Khan could not allow this to happen and quickly ran to the entrance to open the door. Near the entrance, the man realized that the door was locked from the inside and it would not be possible to open it. Khan couldn't believe it for a long time, but everything fit, because only the power of the king could open and close the passages. The first time, Naro could not cope with his power and almost lost consciousness, but he was not going to give up. The ice monster approached him and, taking him by the head, brought him to his senses. The guy woke up already next to Khan, who blamed himself for this mistake. But the main character was not going to give up. He was ready to go to the end to make the force work for him. At this time, the monster world was discussing the fact that their territory was shrinking and food was running out, which was a huge problem. All the demons wanted to know when the gates of the human world would open and they would enter there. The blue monster ran in search of Chen, since there really was no time to wait and the main one demanded him to come to him. Chen threatened the monster not to be afraid and to trust him, otherwise he would lose his head. Then he understood everything and listened to his advice. Arriving home, Luna started talking about how Naro runs away somewhere every night. The guy didn't want to admit it or tell anyone about it, so he said he was going for a walk. Another evening, and the main character came to the fight in full readiness. Khan liked the fact that with each fight, the guy became stronger and more confident. In today's battle, Naro was able to catch the monster's leg and strike. The ice forces flew away in such a way that the Khan could not believe that the boy learned this in a week. Naro prepared himself for battle. He was ready to die but never give up. An unquenchable flame burned in his eyes and no one else could help them. All his anger was visible immediately. He was ready to kill as if he could control himself and his strength. He wanted to kill the strongest with the first blow, but you always need to think one step ahead. Naro fell into the hands of his opponent, but he understood that his vigilance could not be relaxed. The guy struck back with such force as if he was trying to pass his own test. Khan watched with admiration what was happening, because he saw how Naro quickly changed and began to subjugate the force. The icy flame also did not stand aside, striking back at the main character. In the next battle, the boy was able to break the crown, and all the power returned to him. And then he felt what it was like to control power and make it his own. From that moment on, the power began to belong to Naro, and he could competently manage it. And these turned out to be completely different sensations that could not be compared with anything. The main character realized that he was able to defeat not only the force, but above all himself. The next day, the moon underwent physical tests at the center of M1. Together with Aaron, they trained to get into blocked buildings for a while. The girls rushed so quickly that until the end of the test, there was intrigue as to who would win. The captain watched the girls' rivalry, believing that these tests were a good idea. The boss began to take an interest in Naro, since he had not appeared in M1's company for a very long time. The head of the laboratory was forced to warn the captain that monsters were appearing in the middle of the city and that close combat systems needed to be studied. In the ward, in Company M1, Chan lay under the strict supervision of specialists. Everyone was surprised that Chan had already died in the gym, but he was still saved. The main character again came to train with Khan to achieve even better results. The man decided to further test the boy by throwing several spinners. Naro escaped the attacks and was able to get out of this situation painlessly. Khan noticed that the guy's gaze had changed and he had changed his attitude towards the fights. The main character's face looked very surprised because he saw something that he absolutely did not expect. The strength of Khan, which was several times greater than the boy, came out to duel with Naro. The main character was the first to strike Musan in the stomach and his fist flew to the side. When Khan's power hit the guy in the stomach, he flew away at great speed. Naro felt intense pain that he had never experienced. The guy grabbed Musan's arm, trying to test different battle tactics. With great determination and effort, he was able to remove his opponent's hand from himself. After this, another test began. Naro and Han's force were very close and looked into each other's eyes. A moment later, they came together in battle, each with their own desire to win. Naro already thought that he was one step away from victory, but everything was not so simple. And so he has to hit Musan, when suddenly everything disappears and Khan lies in front of him. The guy was able to stop in time, control his strength and his balance. And then Khan told him that he was ready and all the tests had been passed perfectly. In the morning, Luna slept under the bright rays of the sun and dreamed of a delicious breakfast. When she stood up and saw the food on the table, she couldn't believe it at first, but Naro really surprised her. The guy greeted Luna with a smile and invited her to have breakfast together at the table. At breakfast, they had a nice conversation about the behavior of the main character and his actions. Naro was very surprised when he found out that Luna was worried about him, which means she was not indifferent to him. Luna yelled at the main character for not joining M1 yet. She argued that being alone is dangerous, so everyone needs to stick together. A spark flashed between them when Naro realized that no one would worry about him except Luna. The moon itself was surprised that Naro began to share his feelings with her. When they went to the M1 center, the guy was thinking about whether he had changed after the fight in the gym or not. During the conversation, Naro realized that Luna did not know about his mark and what they wanted from him in the center of M1. And then the guy realized that the demon needed something from him. He just needed to understand what exactly. At school, Ron continued to bully defenseless school children. And today he promised to pierce the head of a boy who cannot defend himself. This guy called Ron a freak because he saw things that many people don't need to know about him. Ron immediately felt fear because he understood what was about to be discussed. The guy said that Ron was crawling on his knees in front of Naro and asking for help. Because of this, Ron became very angry and was ready to hit someone at the moment. Classmates and friends learned about this and did not want to communicate with Ron. Nearby, Naro was riding a bus. Noticing two students, he realized that he did not have good memories of school. The main character and Luna came to his apartment. The girl was afraid that it might be dangerous there, but the guy was not afraid of anything. Walking past the store where Luna once worked, the guy realized that she was always looking out for him. Having opened the door, Naro froze because he was immersed in his memories of childhood. They came there to find something very important that he did not tell Luna about. The main character saw a photo with grandmother and could not leave it because he really misses Ba. From the photograph, Luna thought that Grandma Lena's face was very familiar to her. At this time, in the company of M1, Chan woke up from his coma and came to his senses, immediately jumping out of bed. He was very worried, so the first thing he asked was where his friend Naro was. Chan submitted his tests for research, and the laboratory doctor told him that Naro was fine and safe. The guy was very happy with what he heard and hoped that their meeting would take place soon. Having climbed into the laboratory, Chan wanted to steal his blood tests before they got to the check. But there, the girls say he met him, saying that it was unsafe there and they might get into trouble. One of the doctors went there and was very angry when she saw the children in this place where they should not have been. The woman harshly scolded the young people and sent the guy to bed for further treatment. Left alone with the doctor, Chan came up with some terrible plan to take away the tests. He grabbed the woman by the mouth so that she could not scream and brutally dealt with her. A guy left the office, already in a doctor's uniform, leaving the doctor's body in the laboratory. It was immediately clear that the guy belonged to evil spirits and that the monster controlled everything. Naro came to M1 to take the test and join the society. The boss and the chief physician decided to observe this from the captain's office. The main character was willing to pass the test only if the M1 society cooperated with him. The boss didn't really like this condition, so he refused, saying that it was all nonsense. But Naro still decided to join the fight because the fighter Kum began to bully him. This whole test was to see what the main character is capable of. Sometime after the murder of one of the doctors, a nurse found the body in the laboratory, and Kum was already ready to fight with the main character because he was sure that he himself would win. Kum entered the battle and began to confuse Naro, because one of his abilities was speed. The boss was very surprised when he saw that Naro could fight with his eyes closed. When the mark did not appear, the guy realized that he could control his power. At that moment, Chan went to look for Naro and came across one of the fighters who suspected something was wrong, so he had to kill him. Chan's body contained the evil power of monsters, which burst out of him because he could not control it. The main character was confident that he would defeat Kuma, and he succeeded with just one blow. Still, the guy was worried about the enemy, but Luna tried to calm him down. There, Eren and Luna decided to have a friendly sparring to see which of them was stronger. The boss was impressed by the protagonist's powers, saying that his ability affects his physical characteristics, and he needs to train. Moments later, the entire building is covered in red light as M1 has been invaded. Naro understood that monsters had come for him and was already mentally preparing for battle. The captain ordered everyone to take their positions and Naro to go to a safe zone. The guy was ready to fight, but since his ability was unknown, he was sent away from there. To take the boy there, an M1 fighter was needed, so Sehi was sent with him. In the corridor, Naro heard footsteps and was very scared because they could be monsters. Chan came out from around the corner, seemingly happy to see his best friend. Chan threw himself into Naro's arms because he was very worried about him and missed him very much. The main character was very surprised, because his friend shouldn't be there and it seemed something strange. At that moment, the boss and the chief doctor were looking at the cameras and saw how Chan killed a woman. They were surprised by what was happening, but even before that, they understood that the guy survived under strange circumstances. In a safe sector, left alone, friends could finally talk about topics that interested them. Naro said that he could protect his friend, but he reacted strangely. Then the guy suspected something. The captain tracked Chan through cameras, but it is impossible to get into the safe zone because it is closed. He suspected absolutely nothing because she was in love with both guys and did not see anything around. When the girl said about Chan's clothes, which were stained with blood, he immediately began to wriggle out, and Naro didn't like it. Chan began to transform into a monster. Then the main character sent Sehi away from him. The monster's hand was ready to grab the girl, but Naro was able to catch her in time and protect Sehi. The boss watched all this through cameras, because they could not get into that area to neutralize the monster. Now it was definitely clear that Chan was not a person, and that something unclean had taken possession of him. Naro and Sehi were ready for battle and understood that this creature was strong and they needed to try to defeat it. The monster could move quickly around the room so the guys couldn't catch it. Naro was worried about his best friend, but he had no choice and had to be neutralized because the monster was controlling his body. The boss understood that the guys needed help because the monster was a strong opponent, but even the captain himself could not open this door with a universal key. The main character realized that only the power of Ice Flame would help him get rid of the monster. His eyes immediately turned to ice, and they showed resentment and revenge for his best friend. Naro was able to turn off the lights so that he could use his sense of smell to strike the monster. The guy could use his power without turning to it, which surprised the monster very much, because he didn't know about it. The main character was ready to tear apart Chan's body because the monster continued to use his name. This whole situation made Naro very angry, so he used all his capabilities to neutralize the world from this freak. The captain, seeing a flash of blue light on the cameras, could not believe what was happening. The door was unlocked as soon as the main character dealt with the monster, and then the captain immediately ran into the room to talk. Naro was very sad because he still hoped to see his friend alive, but even after the death of the monster, the body could not be buried. At the conference, the head doctor said that Chan died in the gym, and the monster penetrated him and started life processes. Then the boss realized that the monsters were hunting the main character and would not leave him alone. Naro himself realized that the monster needed him, and therefore, the monster took possession of Chan's body. In the corridor, the guy met Eren, who was worried about why he didn't quickly finish off the monster. The main character admitted that Chan was his best friend and he could not decide so quickly to kill him. Luna stood up for Naro, because she understood that it was not an easy decision for him to kill his friend, even though he was already a monster. The guy didn't want to listen to anyone, because he was very worried about the situation, so he just left without saying anything. The chief physician, in discussion with the captain, realized that the boy controls the icy flame, which was one of the main elements. Naro came to his teacher Han to tell him what happened. The guy didn't understand what the monsters wanted from him, so he came to find out from Khan. It seems the time has come, and it was necessary to tell the main character that Khan is the king's successor. He spoke in more detail about the events when everyone died, and the king's power passed to Khan. Khan said that after gaining power, Demons followed him, and he wanted to stop it. The man admitted that Naro was brought into this world by Grandma Lena to save her from death. At the first meeting, Khan did not recognize the prince. He thought that he was an ordinary child. But after Naro showed his power of Ice Flame, which was the king's legacy, everything became clear. And then the main character realized that he was the very key to the portal of two worlds. Khan warned that monsters were pursuing Naro to open the door to the human world. The man put his hand on the boy's shoulder, making it clear that he needed to continue fighting. To become stronger, the main character decided to exercise and started running. He understood that he had a great responsibility because he had to protect everyone. And at that moment, the gates in the world of monsters began to shake, which meant that the key had awakened. Chen also learned about the awakening of the key when he stood on the shore immersed in memories. He thought that his mother Lena took the king's child, leaving him and his sister in the world of monsters. He loved his mother and begged her to take him and his sister with her. Chen ran after Lena and fell right at her feet, but that didn't stop her. The memories were painful, and Chen decided to throw himself into the water. Because of this, their leader was angry, because he could not find this guy. The main king ordered to gather an army, because a portal could open at any time. The blue monster was worried about the king and blamed Chen for all the problems. Chen fell into a tunnel between the human world and the world of demons, thinking that he would get out to the people. But everything was not so simple, and the vines grabbed his leg, which was very unexpected. Chen began to break free, but his strength was running out, and the vines were wrapping him more and more. But the guy was not ready to give up, because even this could not stop him. He recalled how he had to leave his little sister alone in the dark forest. Chen promised to return to her, that is, he did to his sister as his mother did to him. The vines tied the guy up, which seemed to be the end, but he was able to get out of there because he had unfinished business. Nero returned home and really wanted to know why Luna called herself his protector, but she avoided answering. The next day, they came to M1 for training, and Luna showed Seiha's place so that she would not pester Naro. The doctor took the main character for various tests. Luna was worried about him, but he convinced her that everything would be fine. The boss wanted to study his strength, so he sent him for additional research. Naro donated blood, underwent a full-body CT scan and numerous other tests. The chief doctor informed the captain that the guy was completely healthy. He was worried that the boss might find out that the blood flowing in him was not a person, but a monster. The boy exhaled when he learned that everything worked out and his secret remained a secret. Naro came to Khan and told him that the M1 Society had enough weapons and they could help him in the battle. The man said that the warriors would rise up if Naro led them to fight. They were ready to unite and help Naro take the path of a true king. Khan swore with his heart that he would make the main character, the king's son, the new king. After a while, Chen was able to get out of the tunnel, having coped with the tests. The blue monster saw many footprints near the forest and did not understand who could leave them. It seems the rumors turned out to be true and the Blue Butterfly Group decided to rebuild. The monster ordered the army to find the butterfly base and capture the criminals. An unknown person caught a butterfly and crushed it into pieces because it was watching him. When Luna was walking down the street, a body in black clothes where the face was not visible followed her. The girl took him to a deserted place to find out who it was and neutralize it. Just at that moment, Naro drove by and noticed her. In the gateway, the shadow turned into a huge snake monster with hair. Luna began to use her power with the threads to kill this serpent. The monster grabbed the girl by the hand so that she did not even have the opportunity to get out of his clutches. She decided to pretend that she had lost consciousness in order to lull the monster's vigilance. And after a couple of minutes, Luna turned into a beautiful and strong-tailed cat. She grabbed the monster with threads, bandaging its mouth and its entire body up and down. Suddenly, the thread dissolved and the moon almost fell into the mouth of a monster who wanted to devour her. Suddenly, Naro came running. Seeing how his girlfriend was fighting, he was very surprised. Immediately, his eyes lit up with an icy flame and he jumped on the monster to save the moon. The girl fell, hitting the ground as the snake dived underground to escape. The main character ran up to the moon, hoping that everything was fine with her because he couldn't lose her. At home, the guy bandaged his friend's hand and she began to feel better. Naro realized that the girl knew about his abilities even earlier than he did, but did not tell, because she hid it. He became very angry and was ready to leave, but something stopped him. Luna said that one of the fighters in their squad became the wife of the king, and later the mother of the main character. People wanted to kill the queen and the boy, but she was a good and trained fighter, so she did not allow this to happen. The queen has created a secret group in which Luna is a member, and in the M1 Society, the girl wants to find out what goals they are pursuing. While looking at the cameras in M1, Naro and Luna noticed that the recording had been tampered with and there was a door somewhere. The girl was sure that there was information about the queen in the secret room, and the main character wanted to quickly find out the details. The guy and Luna came to the center of M1. There Sehi attacked him and they were very amused by this situation. They went to look for the secret room, knocking on the wall and listening for empty space. Finding the scanner, Naro placed his hand on it and huge doors opened in front of them. Luna and Naro looked in the books and notes to see if there was anything about the queen. After finding photos with Granny and information about his mother, Naro looked sad. Naro's face changed dramatically. His eyes were scared, and his hair stuck out in different directions. He turned around very quickly, because he was afraid that someone would see him and Luna. Luna was no less frightened than the main character, and therefore was already thinking about further actions in her head. When the guy suddenly saw the boss, his excitement at that moment intensified even more. The captain, with a serious face, suspecting nothing, headed towards the documents. He walked purposefully towards specific shelves, frowning on his face. Stopping near the rack, the captain spent a few more minutes looking for the folder he needed, among many others. The boss found and took away the black folder that contained important documents. The man was looking for something secret in the documents, nervously reading the words. Naro and Luna watched him from above. They hid so that the boss could not notice them. The main character and the girl climbed into the ventilation on the ceiling and carefully studied the captain's actions. There was interest in their eyes because they came there to find out what was hidden in this strange room. The boss, having studied and put the book in its place, went on about his business. Still calm and with a serious face, he left there, as if thinking about something. Naro and Luna followed the captain with their eyes, glad that he did not notice them. The girl, with relief, suggested that the main character quietly go back downstairs and continue studying the documents. The guy and the girl were so close that she began to feel embarrassed just by his glance. When the main character approached the moon with his lips, she thought that he was going to kiss her. But Naro reached out with his hand to the girl's hair, suspecting something was wrong. Luna was very embarrassed when the guy quietly touched her face and hair. But how surprised she was when Naro started talking about her hair, because everything was as usual. It turned out that the girl's hair was blowing as if from the wind, but for Naro this was unexpected. Holding a strand of hair, the main character felt where the air was coming from. Turning back with stone faces, Naro and Luna saw a passage into the depths of the ventilation. It seemed to lead into a black hole, which undoubtedly caused fear in both characters. At that moment, Boss heard some sounds while walking down the corridor and became suspicious. Looking around, the captain did not see anyone, but realized that the intruders had entered the archive. Naro and Luna crawled through the ventilation and saw the mesh from which the wind was blowing. Naro looked closely and tried to see what was in that secret room. It turned out that it was a new laboratory with equipment that they did not know about. The main character, having examined everything down to the smallest detail, realized that the laboratory was hiding, even from the moon. And at that moment, there were people in the laboratory. The chief doctor and Aaron were discussing an increased dose of the drug for the girl. Aaron looked calm, didn't worry about anything, which means she trusted the doctor and she needed the medicine. When Naro and Luna realized that they had seen something important, they were very interested in this place. The doctor carefully injected the drug into Aaron's vein, warning that the condition of the body might change. The girl looked sad, as if she was out of options and needed medicine. Aaron sat in the laboratory for some more time, covering the vein with a bandage to stop the bleeding. When it got dark outside, Luna and Naro left the archive, going home to the girl. The main character was concerned about Aaron's condition, because it seemed that she was hiding something. Various assumptions came to mind because it could be a serious illness, but such options were not considered, because the girl would have been taken to the infirmary. And the room itself reminded the main character of a secret laboratory, which perhaps no one knew about except Aaron. Then Luna said that she always considered Aaron suspicious, and perhaps M1 was using her for something. Naro reached into his left pants pocket to take out his cell phone. The guy handed the smartphone to Luna so that she could view the information that was important to him. The girl looked into her phone with great surprise and saw the file of the main character's mother there. Having read information that she had never even heard of, her eyes widened like coins. The data about the main character's mother contained a map of the sea with marked deep places that could not be found using simple equipment. There was only one assumption that this was where the route of entry was located, a huge black hole in the sea that led to the other world of the dead. Then Luna suggested that Aaron was being prepared to move to that terrible world. Perhaps this was true, because the girl has the power of air, which would help her there. In the dead of night, when everyone had long been asleep, someone snuck into Naro's apartment. The large legs of a man in black clothes stood near a frame broken to shreds, and a photograph torn in half was flying in the wind in the house due to a draft. In the photograph, the main character, even as a child, reaches out to his loved one. There was Chen in the apartment who, thanks to his luck, made his way into the human world and began to look for something important. He was upset because he appeared in the human world to find the key, but was unsuccessful. Hearing strange sounds in Naro's apartment, the guard went to check the situation. The man met Chen there and mistook him for a homeless man who just looked good and young. Indeed, Chen looked very young. His hair was long, his eyes were red, blazing with fire. Finding nothing in the apartment, the guy went searching in an unknown direction. To prevent the security guard from reporting the break-in to the apartment owner, Chen was forced to kill him. At this time in the other world, monsters were tied with chains to protect them from human invasion. The monsters were preparing a huge rhinoceros for battle with humanity, which was also tied with chains for safety. And in the sea, near the passage funnel, many terrible creatures swam around. But at this time, the blue monster was prepared for the fact that if the monster got there, they would die. Suddenly, the seemingly strong chain that was holding the evil rhinoceros suddenly broke. A huge rhinoceros fell into the water due to poor quality chains and flew down. But the rhinoceros did not give up, because he had the powers of a monster and was capable of much thanks to them. His eyes were aimed only at murder, sparing absolutely no one. He was flying, and as if with a laser from his eyes he was trying to harm or even kill someone. Its paws were as large and powerful as several human heads and had white claws. And upon landing, the rhinoceros received a strong blow and could hardly survive. But the chief was embarrassed that the number of soldiers did not increase, but only stopped growing. The blue monster tried to explain that all the soldiers were in place and were doing an excellent job. The monster also told the captain that most of the army had been lured away by a blue butterfly. The boss was very angry with the butterfly squad and wanted to take it out by killing one of the assistants. He wanted to widen the crack to send his entire army into the human world. The blue monster agreed to anything, bowing at the feet of the chief. The monster understood that if the crack to another world closed, then his life and the rest of the monsters would end. On a summer night, near a deserted building, people gathered at Khan's request. The girl Molly and the guy Sam stood together talking about something important. They looked very young and stylish, like ordinary teenagers. But however, they still pondered whether Khan told them the truth that the king's son was alive, or if he lied. Sam believed this because he trusted the man, and he nervously tried to light his lighter. The guy brought the lighter to the cigarette, not foreshadowing anything dangerous. He was going to smoke. When suddenly the lighter bursts into flames, burning Sam's hands. This only indicated that a crazy rumor was circulating among the demons and was watching them. And indeed, Chen was watching Molly and Sam on the roof to get more information from them. The man did not believe that the king's son was alive, and tried to convince the young people of this. The young people were very scared when they saw one of the main monsters, and in order not to fall into the trap, they exchanged glances and rushed to run wherever their eyes were looking. Molly flew up to climb around the house, using her strength to the upper floors or roof. She was very scared, so she crawled very quickly, absolutely not looking back. And Sam started running through the building to hide in some nooks and crannies or boxes. The guy was very surprised to see the demon and did not understand where he came from. But Chen also did not intend to remain idle and used his firepower. He directed fire at the walls to neutralize both opponents at the same time. Sam loudly shouted to Molly that she needed to get out of there urgently so as not to get hurt. Suddenly, the guy's hand is instantly pierced by fire, and he doesn't even understand from fear what happened. Having lost his hand, the guy runs without stopping in order to escape. But still, the pain was stronger that Sam fell to the ground and Chen approached him for something. Sam groaned in pain while this crazy monster tried to remind himself. Absolutely without guilt, the man offered to help the guy. Chen talked about being the right hand of the commander-in-chief of the monsters. The man said that he couldn't win because of his body, and Sam managed to transform at that moment. Not listening to the demon, the guy turned and decided to attack him to kill him. Chen looked absolutely calmly as his strongest opponent flew at him, but in one fell swoop, the man threw the guy several meters away. Sam landed on the ground, severely wounded in the abdomen and chest. The demon grabbed the boy's face with his fiery hand, trying to find out at least some information about the key. Suddenly, a huge reinforcement fell from the roof, which was not so easy to lift. Chen, noticing this, was very surprised and quickly moved away from the place where he was standing. And at that moment, the iron fell on the body of poor Sam, already disfigured by fire. On the roof was Molly, who, thanks to her strength, tried to kill the demon with the fittings. She hoped that everything worked out, because the plan was well thought out. There was smoke or fog on the ground that completely blocked the entire view. Split seconds and the poor girl rushes like a million jets of fire. Molly was not ready for this, and was very scared because she was sure that her plan had worked. A huge flash of fire, after which it was impossible to survive, headed towards the girl. Chen used his power with great anger to inflict serious injuries on young people, and so he started running to see if he could kill the girl, or if this was not the end. Quickly running up the wall of the house, the demon approached the roof on which there was fire. The man landed on the roof, blazing with huge flames to finish off Molly. But there was no one there, which greatly surprised the monster, because it was impossible to survive after such fiery blows. Chen noticed bloodstains at the threshold of the door that looked very fresh. He went to the door to see what was behind it. Blood was smeared all over the stairs of this building, which meant Molly was alive. The man was very amused, and he was surprised at her strength, and knew that she would lead him to the king's son. The next morning, people were driving to work through traffic jams, enjoying the sunny weather. One of the drivers, unsuspectingly, drove quickly along the road without slowing down. Suddenly, surprise arose in his eyes because he saw that there was a huge hole in the road. The man somehow managed to slow down in front of the hole, almost completely turning around. Workers blocked part of the road so that drivers would be more careful and avoid getting caught. Also at this moment, for safety, the police were regulating traffic on the road. And one of them was always dissatisfied with bad drivers who don't look at the road and drive. When the man stood at the hole, he noticed some unusual sound from inside. He looked into the hole to see what was making such a disgusting sound. Suddenly a huge monster appears without eyes, with huge teeth and tongue. The monster literally blew off the worker's head, leaving only his body and hat. The second worker, seeing all this, was shocked by what was happening, because he absolutely did not understand what was happening. The man immediately reported on the radio that something huge, like a monster, had crawled out of the hole. The monster was so huge that one of its arms was higher than the houses in the city. And when this creature crawled out of the whole city trembled in fear for its life. He immediately began to grab and kill people. Some managed to escape, but mostly it was all in vain. In fact, there was not just one monster, there were a lot of them, because they came to take over the city. An emergency alarm has gone off at the M1 center, alerting them to monsters. The soldiers immediately ran to the rescue, dividing into groups to effectively perform their duties. Sehi was glad to hear the alarm because she wanted to show herself and take part in a real battle. Aaron, along with another fighter, warned Sehi to behave more restrained. Suddenly, Naro appeared in the center of M1, who was ready for this and put on a special suit for fighting. The main character understood that the monsters had come for him, so it was he who had to neutralize them. Group C was called to fight, but Naro still didn't listen to this and went to fight. He didn't care about the order because he understood that it was his job and duty to save humanity. And at that moment, the monsters were right in the middle of the city, destroying houses and eating people. Aaron felt the most excitement. It was visible on her face. The rest of the guys were having more fun than worrying. She mentally prepared herself for the fight and understood that she might not return from there, but there was no other choice. When the fighters arrived at the crime scene, Aaron's gaze seemed to have already become empty. The girl was the very first to jump from the helicopter. Apparently, she'd been waiting for this day for a long time to end the monsters. The fighters flew headfirst straight towards the monsters to destroy them. The monsters seemed to rejoice and recharge, destroying the city and killing crowds of people. They did not allow cars to pass by, grabbing them and bringing them to destruction. People simply had nowhere to run. One of the M1 fighters was waiting for the monster unnoticed in order to confuse him and kill him. The creature seemed to sense this and stuck out its tongue to quickly grab the man. Thanks to his strength, Kum moved with great speed around the entire perimeter of the monster. The fighter was able to cut off the monster's paws with one blow and without straining at all. The guy rejoiced at his victory and the monsters no longer seemed so big. He had already gotten the hang of it and liked to hurt the freaks who hurt others. The monster tried to grab the boy, but he couldn't. And this attracted the creature more to catch the man and kill him, as the leader ordered them. The Godfather jumped up, striking back with his daggers, cutting off the monster's face. Everything seemed so easy to the guy that training at the M1 center was more difficult for him. A new monster appeared nearby, which one of the M1 fighters fought. Sei struck with her armor, and these were huge iron fists. She jumped and hit the monster in the face, delivering unbearable blows to the jaw. All victories greatly energized the girl, bringing her joy and motivating her to further kill demons. Behind Seha, the monster practically attacked Kum, who was already red with pain and thought that the end had come. Suddenly, the fighter noticed that the monster was still left and decided to finish it off in order to save her friend. With one wave of his finger, the monster got his way and flew off a couple of kilometers. Sehi was more than ever very happy about what was happening, because she could show her importance in the team. The monsters continued to crawl out of the pit, and there were so many of them that the agents could not cope with them all at once. Aaron ordered non-combat personnel to take their positions. The girl also said that there were 5 monsters left, and they could defeat them themselves. She was determined to finally join the fight and end this war. The monsters looked ugly and terrifying, and their teeth were so huge that a person who came across them had no chance. They were already ready and felt the tension as the fighters were approaching. Some creatures continued to dig through the destroyed areas, looking for people. And then Aaron began to transform to demonstrate her power. Her face turned black, her eyes white, and it looked very scary. She suddenly jumped down, attacking the monsters, firing her destructive poison at them. The monsters' bodies were torn through by poison, and they developed wounds incompatible with life. And in just a few seconds, Aaron was able to neutralize a whole bunch of monsters. Sehi and Kum from M1 were very surprised that the girl quickly dealt with the crowd of freaks. Aaron was informed that they had done an excellent job, and that a cleanup and repair team was already heading towards them. The girl stood and looked into the hole as if trying to see this portal through which the monsters came. She couldn't understand why they needed this pathetic intrusion in the middle of the day. Aaron had a strange feeling about this and believed that they had other goals. Kum and Sehi were waiting for the girl nearby to go to the base. Eren stood near the hole, counting for accountability how many monsters they had killed. But all this was so unimportant, because the main thing was that they were able to kill them all, and were able to save humanity. And suddenly, after these words, a huge skeleton of a monster crawled out of the hole behind Eren. Kum and Sehi were surprised because they had never seen such a creature. The fighter seemed to cast the evil eye, saying that they had killed everyone and at least one more huge monster had appeared. Eren could not understand where another monster came from because it seemed that everyone had been destroyed. Everyone received an SMS notification on their phone announcing an emergency evacuation. People who were on the street also received a notification and slowly went home. At this time, Khan was sitting alone on a bench in his old clothes and with a hockey stick. He wondered why the monsters attacked at that moment. What prompted them to do this? This whole situation seemed very strange to the man, because everything was calm, when suddenly an attack occurred. Khan was still looking at the blue, clear, and peaceful sky, realizing that he needed to hurry with his plans. Hearing a sound, the man turned sharply back, as if listening. He pulled the handle to check if anyone was in the next room. At first glance, there was no one in the room, and Han didn't feel anything wrong. His eyes lit up with a green flame because he always had to be ready. Suddenly on the floor, Khan noticed dried blood in a man's legs, similar to women's. Entering the darkness, a wounded girl with black hair appeared in the corner. It was Molly who came to warn the man about the impending danger. She suffered from pain, but still said that Chen came to this world to look for the king's son. Khan's face immediately changed as soon as he found out about this, because all this was dangerous. The man immediately used his powers and began to treat Molly. The girl begged Khan to answer whether Nara was the son of the king. She grabbed Khan's hand tightly so that he would honestly answer her this question, which was so important to her. When Molly learned the whole truth, tears immediately came to her eyes. The man persistently explained to the lady that Nara was the eldest son and the real king. It was unclear what emotions the girl was experiencing at that moment. But Khan did not have time to save her, and she instantly dissipated into ashes in the wind. Chen watched what was happening, still trying to find the king's son to open the portal. He watched from the sidelines at people who felt bad and were killed and eaten by monsters. Kum was greatly panicking because the attacks of the M1 fighters were not working, and they needed reinforcements. The fighters fought with their last strength against this huge monster, still trying to win. Eren created a barrier between monsters and people, which it would seem could break at any moment. The girl was already at her limit and could no longer hold the barrier and fight the monster. She fell straight to his jaw and understood that now it would be the end and no one would help her. When suddenly the main character appears to help the M1 fighters in this battle. Eren couldn't believe her eyes because she didn't know about Naro's strength and capabilities. The guy's eyes burned with an icy flame and there was only the mood to win. The monster was defeated. The main character broke his skull, leaving him in his own black hole. Sehi was glad that Naro appeared. He saved them by killing the monster with one blow and it looked impressive. The Godfather, holding his head, did not even understand how quickly everything happened and the war between the worlds began. The main character was proud that he was able to cope with the biggest ugly monster. Lee Luna came for Eren to pick her up from the earth and support her in difficult times. Luna offered to help the girl because it was very dangerous to stay in that place. Eren just waved it off, saying that she knew everything perfectly well and didn't need to help her. Luna wanted to somehow get closer to the girl, but she constantly behaved selfishly. Eren simply left because she was most likely worried that she could not cope with the monster herself. When the danger had passed, rescuers began to evacuate people to safe places and take the wounded to the hospital. Luna told Nero that they were ordered to return, because everything they could have already done. The main character said that this is not the end and the demons will definitely show themselves. This whole situation was just a harmless beginning. It could get worse and more dangerous. The guy and the girl looked at the city, which was simply falling apart before our eyes. And Khan was already planning how he could get rid of the demon Chen so as not to involve the king's son. The man instructed the soldiers to immediately find Chen for him, and he warned that this guy is considered the strongest in the demon realm. Then the warriors realized that they should not hope for too easy a battle. Unfortunately for humanity, the nightmare of many years ago was repeating itself again. Today everyone will see again the burning bodies of the fallen, screams of horror and fear of being noticed. All this did not surprise the warriors at all. They listened attentively to the elder without any emotion. Khan was ready for battle and motivated his fighters to achieve a positive result. And now the time came to move out. The exit from the cave opened directly from above, collapsing the stones down. Sunlight and drops of flame burst through a small gap in the cave. The passage was open for the fighters to go to war and achieve victory. It was clear in Khan's eyes that it was time to go, but the end could be anything. It's important to be prepared for anything. The man and a crowd of his warriors went towards the sunlight, towards the people. This time, Khan was ready to fight, and not hide in the shadows, as he had before. Chen was glad to see so many of Han's servants because this time they would not have to be caught like rats. The girls rushed into battle with a great desire to kill this nasty demon. All together, the warriors attacked Chen from different directions, confident that they would defeat him. The demon sharply grabbed the man by the arm, preventing him from making a blow. Everyone huddled around the demon and tried to neutralize it together. The fighters understood that they couldn't miss him, because first they had to take out the main one. Suddenly, a red fiery ray suddenly flashes past the face of the guy Omar. The young people were all holding on to each other, and these rays were breaking through them. Chen began to strike and the warriors flew off in different directions. One of the fighters, Omar, was serious and had no intention of giving up. Chen's eyes lit up with a red flame, indicating that he was ready for battle.
Omar, with great anger and a desire to win, struck the demon.
Immediately, Chen pierced the bodies of the fighters with his fiery sword, without the possibility of resistance. He stuck the dagger into the ground so that the fire would hit the areas with people. The fighters could not breathe, suffocating in the thick smoke and could not strike back. And then one of the main warriors entered the battle, surprising the demon with his very appearance. Khan looked intimidating. He turned into a huge steel man. A green mark appeared on his forehead and his eyes lit up with the same flame. Chen tried to anger the man in order to make him angry and confused. The demon called Khan a fugitive, pressing him on the main mistake of his youth, which he regretted. The guy swung his daggers with great force, trying to strike. The Khan said that he was not going to deal with savages, and that they would soon be reunited with the son of the true king. Then the demon was happy, because the man would be able to bring him to the key to the portal of the worlds. Chen, fighting, tried to find out where the key to this passage between monsters and people was. Khan only said that he could not be defeated, and he would not surrender the new king. Angry, the guy threw Khan into a hole, and he sat down next to her, looking down to see if the man had survived. At this time, the female fighters tried to retaliate from behind to save Khan. A hand suddenly flew past his face, just a little, and he could have gotten it in his face. Khan himself landed in a cave and was considering how to get out of there. The man was afraid for his warriors, because the demon was much stronger and could destroy everyone. The girl, screaming loudly, attacked the guy from behind to kill him and free the chief. And Khan only asked to work faster because the demon's speed was very high. Chen had already sent his fiery hand to deal the final blow to Han. He mentally prepared himself and prepared his strength, because he understood that the man was a strong opponent. The guy stood with his back to the wounded soldiers and thought that everyone was already dead. Suddenly a girl grabbed him by the cloak from behind, not letting go of him for a long time. After all, according to the fighters, nothing will ever go according to the demon Chen's plan. And then he struck the girl and burned her and the rest of the people alive. Turning around, the guy did not see Khan and did not understand where he could have gone. Then Chen went elsewhere to search for the key, creaking his staff on the floor. People could not understand what kind of man was passing by, and even with a real weapon. Someone suggested that perhaps an interesting film with actors was being made, but the demon came up with some plan to find this key to the portal of two worlds. The guy wasn't going to pursue the main character because he came up with something better. On the way, Chen came across an inconspicuous schoolboy, like a gray mouse. The boy buried his face in his phone and did not notice how a fiery sword quickly flew in front of his face. The demon pierced the schoolboy in half with his weapon for his own purposes, and the boy died. But first he turned completely black, falling into two parts. Then Khan showed up, who had a plan, because it was impossible to leave the demon alive. The man made a promise to his soldiers that if they all died, he would not leave these creatures alive. No matter how sad Khan was for the fighters, there was no other choice. The man had to overthrow the false king and remove him from this world, but he wanted to save Naro. And so he ran in search of the demon, so he could deal with it himself, without dragging Naro into it. Khan tried to convince himself first of all that he needed to run away as far as possible. He learned from trusted sources that Chen was trying to get Naro's attention. The demon deliberately killed people in the market so that the key would find it itself. The Khan did not know what to do, because he had to protect the king. Even last year, he was unable to protect the queen and her husband and child. Having given hundreds of lives and fought for so long, there was no turning back. We had to move on. After all, the real king had been found, and it was necessary to close this world of monsters forever. Therefore, not a second of time could be lost, and Naro himself was ready for battle. Then Han quickly rushed to the market to fight Chen himself. Approaching the city's center, the man was surprised by what was happening. People with great fear ran away from destroyed houses and burning streets, trying to hide somewhere. They just lay there like garbage on the street, which they killed and threw out to the ruins. For monsters, human lives were worthless. People seemed to them a weak and pathetic species. And the main demon, Chen, only because of the situation with his mother, became so angry and cruel to this world. He talked about how his childhood was ruined because of his mother, who shared blood with people. One guy was hiding under a car and praying that he wouldn't be found there. Suddenly a shadow approached him, which greatly frightened the guy, but he continued to believe in the best. And then Chen, in one fell swoop, lifted and threw back the car with the man underneath. The boy was very scared and begged not to be killed because he wanted to live. The demon swung his sword and was almost ready to kill a living person. The guy put up his right hand, thus trying to protect himself from the monster. Suddenly someone called the demon by name and he turned around to look. Khan approached him, who was going to stop everything that was happening in the city. The man's face took on a grayish tint and a mark appeared. He was ready to fight. Han tried to kindly convince Chen to stop, but it was too late. The man finally turned around and ran towards his opponent to strike. Khan believed that other people's lives should not be used like that and fought for justice. But the opponent had a different opinion, that it was not criminals who should die, but weak people. That is why the demon decided to cleanse this world of weakness. But the man was furious, because whoever the demon thinks he is, only God can take or give life. Han wondered how many more people Chen was going to kill while clearing the city, and who would fit his criteria. And everyone who crosses or has once crossed the path of monsters can say goodbye to life. In the city center, a car arrived for the fighters from the M1 center to pick them up from there. Li Luna told Naro that someone was after the blue butterfly. They learned that monsters were gathering an army and trying to break into the human world. And it dawned on the main character that the monsters that appeared today did not just appear. Naro and Luna were having a nice conversation together, and it seemed that Sehi and Eren were looking at them with jealousy. Eren's look was similar to a situation where everything is hopeless and nothing can be done. All this melodrama is immediately interrupted by a call from the captain to all M1 agents. The boss said that a few kilometers from the fighters, another unpleasant situation occurred. The guys were tired, listened to the messages, and were not happy about it. But Sehi still wanted to take part in the battle with monsters, so she was positive. Luna and Naro were surprised by the call, and there was also a terrorist attack called Code 9. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, a report of terrorism and arson was received in the market area. Using the cameras, M1 was convinced that it was Code 9 because Han and Chen were seen fighting on camera. The agents needed to immediately move to the breach point and resolve the situation. All these events caused a storm of emotions, because for the fighters, it seemed incredibly dangerous. According to the girls, the people from the cameras looked like the strongest type of monsters. Then Luna seemed to recognize someone in the video and wanted to talk to Naro about it. The main character did not immediately recognize Khan in the video and was very scared for him. The guy, without explaining himself to the fighters, quickly rushed to help Khan because there was no time to wait. All the agents were shocked by what happened because they knew nothing about the situation of the main character. Luna ran with Naro because it was very dangerous to go there alone. The main character was worried about Khan because for him, he became the only close person. But Li Luna understood that Khan was a monster for M1, and it was important to take him in time. The guy and the girl remembered the behavior of M1 agents in the fight against monsters and understood that the same thing would happen. Luna called the main character to get through the house because he had to make it before M1 arrived. Naro trusted the girl because he saw how she tried to help him and did not abandon him in a difficult situation. Naro grabbed Luna's hand tightly and they were able to get there much faster. Meanwhile, the situation in the city was appalling and uninhabitable. Chen made his way, destroying everything in his path. He didn't even expect that the fight with Khan would drag on for such a long time. And in the process, houses and roads built near the battle were destroyed and suffered. And as long as the sword was in this form, Chen could cut anything with it. His sword was stronger than any other weapon, because the demon even chopped people with it. The demon was ready to fight forever to win and weed out the weak people. Han and Chen continued to fight each other as if they were not losing any strength. All the fights were useless. The sword could not harm Khan, because it was stronger than some kind of stick. In this already long struggle, it was still unclear who would win and who would lose everything. With one blow, Chen was able to cut off Khan's elbow, melting it with a fiery flame. And over time, the demon realized that he was getting tired and beginning to lose strength. For a while, the fighters gave themselves time to have the opportunity to rest. The heat of the sword was able to melt the Khan's skin, and then the blade cut off his hand, and he could no longer recover. Chen said that the Fire Warrior is the worst opponent, and the next thing he will cut off will be the leg. Khan was not afraid of death, but he was not going to give up in front of such a pitiful opponent. The man decided to use all his strength to finish off the demon completely. Khan claimed that even with his throat cut, he would continue to fight. He had nowhere to return and no one to live for, which is why he prepared himself for battle. And Chen looked very tired, because he didn't think that he couldn't defeat one of the strongest fighters. The demon was on the edge, but still stood his ground, continuing to fight with his almighty sword. It was as if he felt the last fluttering of the enemy, but Khan was able to create a strong wind at a great distance, which surprised the enemy. Chen was like a hurricane with which it was useless to fight, and there was no hope of victory. Just one blow from his sword, and a person or even a monster dies because he receives a severe burn and cut. But Khan still continued to stand up for himself and Naro, whom he promised to protect. Chen beckoned the enemy closer to cut off his leg and end the fight. And then Khan used his secret power, which no one knew about. Sharp spears suddenly burst out from under the ground, which were supposed to pierce the enemy. They looked like they were made of iron and could pierce absolutely any person, much less a monster. Han was glad when he saw that this trap scared Chen and would be able to disarm it. But all the efforts were in vain. The enemy cut off the sharp edges of the spears with his sword and still cut off Khan's leg. His leg simply melted from the enormous temperature of the terrible sword. Yi Chen admitted that he underestimated the enemy, and it was very interesting to fight with him. And the demon understood why many years ago, all the warriors followed him. But this was already the end, because the monster could not leave his enemy alive. The guy brought his blade to Khan's neck, demanding information about the new king. Chen could have killed the man painlessly if he had told him about the key that he had been looking for so long. But Khan only insulted the demon because he killed so many people hunting for some kind of key. The man was wondering why he killed a bunch of innocent people, just for the key. And the demon, without answering, asked question after question, wondering why Khan was risking his life for the sake of the half-breed. Khan, with a smile on his face, squeezed his sword, trying to break it and leave the enemy without a weapon. And he replied that it was a joy for him to communicate and protect the new king. But it could not even occur to the demon that a person would stand up for another person unknown to him. And then Chen felt some kind of aura and tried to understand where it was coming from. It was overwhelming power, preventing the monsters from even breathing. And then a blue color is visible. Naro ran in to show the enemy his ice flame powers. The main character immediately attacked the demon, hitting him on the head with all his might. With his frightening gaze, the guy tried to convince the monster to stop this battle. But the demon was not ready for this, so he was forced to receive pain with the power of a cold flame. Khan looked at the guy, and was glad that he could make him so smart and reasonable. The man still recalled from his youth that he was not supposed to protect the king, but was supposed to protect the weak and those who follow him. The king also said, "If you collapse without strength, then I will save you." And so it happened many years later. The now exhausted Khan is saved by the king's son. And Naro says only good words about the man, remembering moments of training. After all, Khan became the closest person to the main character, and he was able to love him. While Khan groaned in pain, the main character stood in his defense and attacked himself. And then Luna ran up to take the man from this dangerous place. The girl explained that she was a member of the Blue Butterfly, and would not harm Naro and Han. Luna said we had to hurry because the M1S were already very close. She was ready to help get to a safe place, but Khan felt unwell and could not go. Blood started coming from the man's nose, and this couldn't mean anything good. Mostly only bad. Luna was very surprised by what was happening, and did not know what to do. And then Chen began to emerge from the cave, who had not yet realized that Naro was the key to the portal. He looked at the main character with his stupid smile, and was glad that he had found the queen's spawn. Naro felt great power from this demon, because it was not like the monsters he had met before. Chen said that he lived in hell all his life and always dreamed of killing the king's son. But Naro was very confident in his strength, and therefore was ready to fight. Then red threads appear out of nowhere, which Luna seems to be fighting with. The demon didn't even have time to think about what it was, as he quickly cut them with his sword. Naro realized that Luna was helping him, and Chen wondered what you were serious about. The girl wanted to finish off the monster herself, and asked Naro to leave the monster for her. But the main character reacted very harshly, because it was very dangerous. But it was unknown what would happen when the M1 agents arrived, and until that moment it was necessary to move Khan. And the guy trusted the girl and relied on her, but of course he was always on hand. Turning around, the main character decided to give Luna the opportunity to deal with the demon on her own. Naro left them, saying that he would return soon, and it was very important to hold out at least until this moment. He thanked Luna for giving him the opportunity to save Han in this situation. After all, this was really the only dear person who remained with the guy, and the girl, taking all her strength into her fist, promised Naro to wait for him. Chen stood with his mouth open, as if not knowing what to do in this situation. His face immediately changed because he realized something and was confused. At that moment, the demon remembered the nightmare that had haunted him all his life. A horror that plagued him every night throughout his damn life. The demon was only able to say his sister's name because he recognized her. Luna couldn't believe her ears because no one could know her real name. She did not recognize in this freak her brother, whom she loved very much in childhood and waited for. She tried to find out from Chen how he still knew her name from the past. But the guy couldn't say a word, because this had been a sore subject for him since childhood. And Luna became more and more angry about this situation because she could not recognize her brother. All this angered the girl so much that she quickly began to attack the demon. Chen didn't even resist one bit when the girl started wrapping threads around him. Luna pulled her whips with all her might to inflict pain on the nasty monster. She grabbed Chen and dragged him around the entire perimeter, hitting him hard on the ground. The girl flew up and raised her leg to kick the monster hard. The moon landed right on his stomach, causing the earth to shake. Chen began to spit out drops of blood, which indicated internal damage. and the girl continued to mock her brother, this time grabbing him by the neck. No one was supposed to know this name, which is why Luna was so angry. Chen tried to explain everything, but it was difficult for him to speak because his throat was tied. But the girl only asked not to call her by her old name, because she had a different life for a long time. The demon told his sister that he wanted to become strong because everything was taken away from him and he thought that his sister was dead. And the guy had to question why the moon remained alive, and well, because he dreamed of her in nightmares. Everything went up in flames as soon as Chen admitted that he was Luna's brother. A truck with M1 agents arrived and stopped nearby. Due to smoke and poor visibility, they had to get out of the van and walk. And first of all, their goal was to engage in elimination, not salvation. Arriving at the scene, the fighters had many questions, because the entire territory was destroyed and covered in flames. They had no idea that this could destroy their city, which had only recently been intact. Aaron advised the fighters to concentrate in order to do a good job, but Kuma was not satisfied with the girl's command, and he was indignant because of this. There was just a strong, ominous energy wafting from everywhere, and it was necessary to get down to business. They had never felt such power, and one mistake could cost the fighters their lives. Nearby, Naro carried Khan out of the fire in his arms to provide assistance. The main character supported the man so that he did not relax in despair. Now Naro promised to always protect Han, and first they would heal their wounds and then hide. The man quietly grabbed the guy's hand because he wanted to talk, thinking that the boy was tired, but the main character did not intend to give up and first wanted to live with Khan in his shop. Naro tried to control himself, but all this was painful for him. The man asked the boy to raise his head up to see something important, but Naro admitted that he could not do this. It was very painful for the guy to watch people dear to him die and leave him. First, his grandmother left him with whom he lived his whole life. Later, my best friend Chan, who was not even involved in everything that was happening, left, and Khan reported that they did not leave. Their bodies returned to the earth to protect Naro. But in any case, the souls remained with their loved ones, and it could not be otherwise. They were all there for Naro and always will be. The main thing is not to get upset. Khan advised the main character to accept responsibility and move forward because this is the duty of the living. After this, the man's body began to release a green tint and particles from his limbs began to dissolve. King Han's guard leaves. And finally, Khan said that meeting Naro was a real honor for him and said goodbye. For Naro, this was already the third loss in his entire life, which was very painful for him. Lee Luna could no longer cope with the demon. He grabbed her by the neck, trying to strangle her. Chen accused his sister of always having her head in the clouds and thinking about others, and now she dared to return to life for the sake of a half-breed. The demon changed dramatically, called his sister pathetic, and said that she should have died in that forest. The girl tried to make every effort to escape from the hands of this freak. Luna called her brother a coward, which made him feel strange. Chen was supposed to kill his little sister back in that forest, but for some reason he spared her. With the distraction, Luna stabbed the demon to escape his grasp. She kicked him in the face and easily jumped out of his trap. These conversations with her brother made her more and more angry and want revenge. But the demon quickly changed again when the moon showed him the place. Chen wanted the girl to die, but he himself could not do it, because killing his sister was too much even for a demon. And it turned out that the guy himself saved his sister's life by giving her the blue butterfly. After all, it was the blue butterfly that saved the moon when she showed the necklace. And Luna was interested in the question of what her brother was thinking about when he gave her the butterfly and left. But the path that Chen chose led only to suffering, but it was only his choice. In that hell, there was only fear and blood. The guy had to cope on his own. Luna asked her brother not to get in the way so that she could live in peace. But so much time had passed, and the demon didn't care about everything. Now he would have been able to kill his little sister. A fiery sword appeared in his hand to strike, but Chen didn't want to make his sister unhappy either, which was strange. Literally a moment later, the main character appears to avenge all the loved ones who died at the hands of monsters. Luna couldn't understand why Naro came back so wound up and angry. She was even surprised to see him there, because she thought that he would not come. Naro reported that Khan had died, and the girl's face changed from this news. Naro could never forgive this freak because of whom his last loved one died. The main character was going to kill Chen, no matter what the cost, because this was already a matter of principle. The demon was only amused by this whole situation because it didn't matter to him who he killed. He laughed at Naro, because the guy showed his feelings for other people. This terrible and disgusting feud should have ended right there. The atmosphere was quite calm. The street was quiet, and nothing attracted attention. And then there was a sharp flash, an explosion of Naro's powers and his icy flame. The main character gathered all his strength into a fist and was ready to fight with the demon, who was already very tired, which means he would lose faster. Chen started swinging his fire sword and Naro started stabbing with his ice flames. They fought almost on equal terms, and anger in this situation took its toll. The main character had never fought such demons before, but was still ready to kill him. A mark appeared on Naro's face. indicating his full strength. In this fight, the guy no longer avoided his opponent but was the first to attack, because he could control the force. With his power, he created ice blocks that could crush or pierce a person and a demon. The ice flows were a beautiful shade of blue with a very sharp point and destructive effect. But Chen was not going to give up. Despite his fatigue, he tried to melt the ice with his fire. The demon was able to scatter ice stones and come closer to his opponent. Chen did not know what the king's son was capable of and was confident that he could destroy him. Nero could strike with great speed, even with his eyes closed. When the demon came closer, the main character was able to cause the most powerful ice storm. Li Luna looked at all this from the outside, without interfering in the men's squabbles. The girl was surprised to see all of Naro's abilities, because he fought on equal terms with the strongest demon. The main character felt the demon's energy, even from a distance. In terms of sheer power, Naro was clearly superior to Chen, but there was one problem. Chen also did not yield, although he fought with the king's son, who had unique strength. The demon made up for the difference in strength with skill and innate dexterity. Li Luna understood that Nero was in danger and had to help him. The girl remembered what her brother told her and thought about what to do in this situation. She understood that her brother had abandoned her, but she seemed to feel sorry for him. Luna thought about the demon's words, because he also pressed on pity to win. She slapped herself sharply in the face to come to her senses and realized that she was protecting the king's son, not monsters. The girl considered herself a fool for even considering different options. Luna should not have hesitated in this situation, but only defended the true king. Meanwhile, Chen tried to put pressure on Naro's pity in order to piss him off. The demon compared the main character with himself, in that he also grew up without parents and lost his loved ones. The guy didn't even want to listen to the enemy who claimed that the king only had a thirst for revenge. Chen tried to fool his opponent and confuse him in order to win. Having told the main character about the same lives, the demon was ready to deal the final blow. He said that if it's all about fate, then you will have to suffer for the rest of your life. Nero still listened to Chen's words and took them personally because he couldn't do without it. It seemed that he was saying sincere and truthful phrases that hurt the guy. But still, the king continued to fight so as not to share his path with the ugly demon. My strength was at its limit, and my morale left much to be desired. Naro was squeezed like a lemon, but still had to speed up and become stronger. Suddenly, a familiar female voice called out to him, and he realized that help had arrived. The moon motivated the guy and told him not to lose his head, because they had a powerful enemy in front of them. The girl was sorry that the main character had lost loved ones, but at the moment it was necessary to remain careful and fight until victory. After all, only the son of a king could fight demons of this magnitude, and if he was killed, then it would be the end of everything. Nero tried to convince Luna that he could handle it himself, but she was adamant. And no matter how strong the attack is, it is useless if the monster can dodge. Chen was still on his feet, so Nero clearly needed support. It was clear that if you allowed the demon to seize the initiative, you would put your life at risk. The main character understood everything and decided to listen to the moon and her suggestions. The girl was glad that she was able to instill strength in the guy and achieve prudence. Of course, she suggested that they team up and deal the demon a strong enough blow, and then victory would be in their pocket. The king's son stood motionless for a couple of seconds, thinking about the whole plan and the risks, and I wondered if he and Luna could defeat this freak who had destroyed everything around him. The main character pulled himself together and went forward to meet his fears, because no one else could do this except him. And then the M1 fighters came to the rescue. The fighters began a mission to destroy the demon, which needed to be ground into powder. Kum claimed that the territory of the struggle was like hell, because everything was burning with fire. Sehi noticed where to go and told the agents because there was the hearth. The girl saw brother Naro, who fought with the help of his ice flame. Aaron was surprised to see the main character there, because the fighters thought that Nero and Luna had escaped. And it seems there was fear in Aaron's eyes, as if she had some feelings for the guy. There, M1 agents noticed Luna, who had been converted into her battle image. And when Chen saw his sister, he realized that he would have to kill her too in order to finally end everything. The demon was ready to defeat his own sister for the sake of his own victory. But Luna did not show all her strength and immediately took advantage of the power of foxfire. Chen covered himself from the flames and smoke so as not to get hurt and continue to fight. His eyes seemed to be filled with a cloud, because the strength was not so ordinary. The demon did not see or feel anything, as if he was hallucinating. Thanks to this, the main character was able to stab him in the chest with his icy flames. Naro was sure that this blow would overthrow the monster and tear him to shreds. But the demon was very strong and didn't even feel anything. Chen brought his palm to the main character's hand to feel his strength. The man grabbed the boy's hand and felt that the energy of the son of the former king really flowed within him. But Naro was too small and weak for such power, and Chen guessed that this was the key. The demon wanted to share some of his own energy in exchange for the key to open the gate. Luna was very afraid that Chen could harm Naro and wanted to intervene. The demon was able to splash out his fiery powers on the guys so that the fire would kill them. The fiery ray hit the moon, causing her painful torment that she lost consciousness from the pain. Nero also used his ice flames to try to fight back the ugly monster. But it seemed that Thon was stronger, and the icy flame did not seem to have any effect on him. The main character was able to release all the power that he had tried so hard to keep in control. The M1 agents were shocked by what they saw and did not know what to do. And then a portal opened between the two worlds. The monsters were very happy about what was happening, because they had dreamed about this for many years. The path to the human world is clear, because Chen has found the key to the gate. Here the chief decided to give instructions to his monsters on what to do next. People have been holding back demons for a very long time, and now their path is free. It's time to repay all the pain that people have caused them. And today the demons had to take back the world that was once taken from them. The main one ordered to go to the world of people to kill them and destroy everything. A level 4 alarm was declared in Society M1 when everyone had to act according to instructions. After all, now the city was about to be attacked by monsters who wanted to kill all of humanity. Immediately, a huge hole appeared in the sky, a door to the other world. The M1 agents encountered such a situation for the first time and were shocked. The hole expanded further and further over the city, raising strong winds. Then Seihi noticed that something was happening on the roof and people needed help. Naro was there, trying to help the wounded Luna survive. The girl was unconscious and the guy tried to take her away to get help. The main character rushed from the roof to be sure to have time to cure his girlfriend. The fighters didn't see much, but it seemed to them that Naro had taken away the moon. Aren, having learned about this, was very angry because no one knew about the powers of the Luna fighter. People who were on the street began to notice that the sky had become somehow strange. Suddenly, a huge monster fell from there, which was much larger than a tall building and scared people. The people driving the car suddenly braked, not understanding what was happening. One man got out of the car and tried to see what kind of creature was lying in the middle of the road. It turned out to be a huge head of a terrible monster with sharp fangs. Suddenly the man noticed that something strange and unusual was happening behind him. Turning around, the monster swoops down on him and smashes the man's head into the asphalt with its paw. Monsters like drops of rain began to fall from the sky, attacking people. Some creatures died immediately, while others even managed to survive longer in this beautiful world. Not only people, but also monsters died in the human world. All this was because of their own stupidity, because they could not think at all. Innocent boys and girls ran away from the attack sites to protect themselves. The city was being destroyed before our eyes. The bastards seized all the lands. The houses were almost completely burned to the ground. These nasty creatures could not reason or think. They only carried out the orders of their leader. Each monster was worse than the other, waiting for people around the corner or immediately attacking them. Some didn't even have eyes. Instead, there were only some terrible growths. One of the monsters even broke a train carriage because there were a lot of people in it. Breaking news immediately reported that monsters had begun to take over the city. The National Security Council convened and they confirmed the invasion and assigned the highest threat level. The army deployed all its forces to cleanse the city of this evil spirit. The full extent of the destruction has not yet been established, but people have been working on it. Suddenly, a huge evil rhinoceros fell from the sky which could destroy everything with just its weight. All the monsters looked ugly and each of them was looking for people to kill or eat. A call was made to the hotline in the M1 control room from an unfamiliar number. The boss picked up the phone, listening carefully to what he was told, and it turned out to be a call from an even higher authority. The benefactors were concerned about the situation in the city and wanted to know what the M1 agents were doing. The captain convinced his superiors that everything would soon change and he would correct the situation. The boss also set the conditions that if he quickly copes with the situation, he will be able to command further operations. There was no response to the request, but the situation still needed to be corrected. And the fact was that the agents with their powers could not resist the monsters. But still, the M1 organization had been preparing for such a situation for decades, which meant it could fight back. And it was important to think everything through and strictly follow the commander's instructions. Naro carried Luna to safety at her home for immediate medical attention. But they could not be left alone, and Eren followed the main character. The guy found a first aid kit in Luna's house because no one but him could help the girl now. Luna's wounds turned out to be more serious than the main character thought, and they needed to be treated urgently. Suddenly, walking along the corridor, the main character noticed something was wrong. The iron fence on the window was broken, which meant someone had broken into the house. It seems that Luna was in danger, and the king's son ran to her room in order to save her. Next to the girl's bed stood Eren, who seemed to be scanning the moon with her powers. Nero dropped the first aid kit and ran up to Eren with great anger to stop her. The main character grabbed the girl tightly, but she managed to escape. She herself fought back, asking not to disturb her and to check on Agent Luna. Naro pressed himself against the wall, realizing that it was too late and nothing could be done. The guy did not understand what Eren was up to and tried to get an answer from her. He warned the girl that if this happens next time, it will not seem too bad to her. Erin replied that she needed to check something, and it was very important. With her hand, she removed the blanket from Luna to check if everything was as she felt. And all her suspicions were confirmed when she saw the girl's wound. Luna had a serious wound to her stomach and chest, from which an ordinary person would not be able to survive. But the girl remained alive, which seemed very strange to Aaron. The agent tried to convince the main character that only a monster could survive such a wound. After all, the less human you are, the more you can endure. Aaron claimed that Luna was a monster, but the main character did not want to believe her. The guy covered the girl with a blanket and insisted only that the moon was and will be just the moon. After all, the fighters fought side by side with her for a long time, and nothing suspicious was noticed. Aaron thought all the words were stupid, and that Naro was saying some kind of nonsense. After all, any monster was an enemy of people, and even more so of fighters from the M1 society. The agent was about to hit the guy, but he lit up with an icy flame and stopped the girl. She was shocked by what she saw, because she did not know that Naro had such power. The main character admitted that he has the blood of not only a person, but also a monster. If almost all the demons try to kill him and people join them, then the guy will be left completely alone. He doesn't know which side he will have to fight on to survive. Hearing the confession of the main character, Aaron was even speechless. They stayed in the apartment all evening, talking about the power of Naro and Luna. The guy tried to put pressure on his feelings so that the fighter could understand him. But the girl didn't know what to do in this situation, and whether she should report everything to the boss. After all, the situation was getting more and more out of control, and the monsters could only be stopped by the forces of M1. Aaron decided not to tell anyone anything and keep the secret between themselves. The goals of the young people coincided, and the girl proposed to temporarily unite. The fighter trusted the king's son and Li Long for her own good and the good of the people. Naro washed the girl's wound of blood, treated it, and bandaged it. Leaving Luna alone at home, Naro promised her to return soon. And at that same moment, he remembered how during the battle with the demon, the girl promised to wait for him. The guy was concerned about his girlfriend's condition, because he couldn't lose her either. In one of the dilapidated buildings, M1 agents fought with monsters. Kum was left alone because Sehi got lost somewhere and did not come to help him. At the same time, an ugly monster was watching the boy from around the corner. He jumped out and attacked the agent, but Kum, thanks to his speed, was able to get away from him. The monster sharply hit the boy with its paws, but it did not work since Kum disappeared. The agent climbed onto the monster's head trying to joke, wanted to neutralize the monster. Suddenly, in the middle of the creature's head, a sword strike quickly and imperceptibly sweeps through. Godfather was able to cut the monster in half, but the monster got back to its feet, even after it was cut down to kill the man. Godfather called Sehi, who left the agent alone to fight the reptiles. The demon connected its parts to their original position and attacked the fighter. The Godfather allowed himself to let his guard down, which is why he fell into the trap. When Sehi suddenly runs up and strikes a strong blow to the monster, which tears him apart, now forever. The girl was glad to kill the demon and save her friend who was in trouble. The Godfather was angry with Sehi because he was very worried about her, because it is very dangerous to deal with monsters alone. The girl's eyes sparkled when she heard that the guy was worried about her. But she didn't really like the agent, because he had a pretty ugly face and slick hair. And then they were attacked by several huge creatures that they could not have fought on their own. But there were no other options, and they had to fight only the two of them. Having gained strength, the guy and the girl worked together and were able to neutralize all the monsters. Almost every minute, Aaron receives calls from all over the city asking for help. The girl wanted to find Sehi first, but realized that the monsters would not let her go so easily. Therefore, Aaron decided to fight alone, using her violet flame power. She was fully charged to achieve victory in the battle. Everything worked out very well for the girl. The monsters fell to the ground with burnt bodies. The monsters were huge and could crush the fragile lady with their numbers alone. In addition, Aaron had already lost a lot of energy, but she could cope with a couple more demons. When suddenly the monster grabs her right hand with its teeth, trying to bite it in half. The demon is trying with all his might to bite off Aaron's hand so that blood has already appeared, and it would seem that there is only a little time left until the end. And then Naro appears, who killed the terrible creature with one blow. He came to the girl's aid because he saw that she could no longer cope. In a few minutes, the main character, thanks to his strength, was able to neutralize a bunch of monsters. Suddenly, the guy's hand fell into the mouth of a nasty monster with sharp fangs. All this was useless because the king's son had the most unique power. And after some time, all the monsters were already lying torn to pieces right on the ground. The guy came to Aaron to find out where the demon Chen was in order to find him. The main character was on edge. His aura changed dramatically because he was going to kill Chen. The girl said she had not received any reports and thought he was hiding somewhere. Aaron tried to stop Naro, but her arm hurt so much that she didn't have the strength to chase him. The girl needed to step back and treat the wound so as not to get infected. And then Aaron saw the ashes on her hand and did not understand where it came from. The city was turning more and more into ruins every hour, and Chen looked at all this from the side and rejoiced. The demon thought about his sister, whether she survived or died, he did not know. And then someone called out to Chen, calling him brother, and he even got a little scared. Behind him stood a serpent who served the demon and carried out his instructions. They talked about how pleased they were that the demons were crushing people like worms. The snake said that at the end of the war, the king would reward the demon because it was he who found the key. The monster was sure that Chen also took care of the messenger from the blue butterfly. Chen realized that we were talking about his sister, and everyone thought that the demon had killed her. And then the guy became interested in how the snake would kill his sister Luna and asked him to describe it in detail. He replied with a smile that he would cut off all the limbs, but first get rid of the fingers and toes. Chen couldn't stand it and stopped the snake's story because he couldn't let someone kill his sister. The demon grabbed the monster by the neck and wanted to strangle him with great pleasure. He tore off his head because the monster, according to his stories, liked pain. Chen stood near the body of the snake and could not understand what came over him, because he himself wanted to kill his sister. The demon was completely bewildered by what was happening and did not know what to do. The next day, Erin came to the M1 Society to treat her wound. The wound on her hand received yesterday had practically healed, which was strange because a person is not capable of such a thing. The doctor said that all this is just good regeneration and it does not make her a monster. The woman was already preparing a syringe with the drug to inject it into Erin, but the girl abruptly snatched the syringe from the doctor's hand, not allowing her to inject the medicine. The fighter looked at the syringe, trying to understand by its appearance what the doctor was injecting her with. When asked about the contents, the woman had only a negative reaction. It was obvious that all this was not a coincidence, but was somehow connected with each other. Erin pressed the doctor against the wall, trying to rudely lure out an answer in order to find out what she had been injected with for a long time. The doctor tried to convince the fighter that it was a regular painkiller. The girl didn't believe it and brought the syringe to the woman's neck to inject her with the drug. The doctor promised to explain everything, if only she would stop and not do what she had planned. In fact, Erin was injected with stem cells that contain monster DNA. Heightened senses, strength, regeneration, all these abilities were characteristic of monsters. If people gain such power, they will become the strongest race, a species that will never go extinct. Erin realized that the M1 workers were experimenting on her for their own benefit. But the doctor refused, saying that she wanted to make the girl stronger. Tears appeared in Erin's eyes because she realized that she had been turned into a monster. The woman took the fighter to a secret room to show him something interesting. This was a secret area where even an S-class agent was prohibited from entering. Entering the room, Erin saw where the monster's stem cells came from. In this area, there were many ugly monsters that could not do anything because they were like amoebas. The commander tried to create a new human species using the power and regeneration of monsters. M1, possessing such a weapon, could lead humanity forward. But the society still did not have enough resources, and such a large invasion of monsters became a great opportunity for them. The doctor felt the wind and turned around to see how Erin, using his power, wanted to kill her. The girl realized that they had lied to her, saying that all this was for the sake of people. After all, M1 society needed only strength and power over the world. The woman tried to say many things to justify herself, but Erin no longer believed a single word and was in the mood to attack. Using her violet flame powers, the girl broke all the equipment, and Erin released the doctor's collected collection of monsters into the wild. The woman was furious and very scared, not understanding why the fighter was doing this. And then all these monsters began to attack the doctor, grabbing his neck and arms. The doctor shouted to the girl that she would not let her get away with this, and would definitely punish her. And then the monsters approached her face, and it was clear that she would not be able to get out of there. Erin watched this, not a bit sorry for what she did. And the woman tried to get out by scratching her long nails on the floor and asking for help. She begged for help, but no one there could hear her because it was already too late. Erin simply left, closing the doors, trying not to think about anything because it was all right. The next day, the weather was excellent, warming with its sun. Luna finally came to her senses, but she still felt bad. Opening her eyes, the girl saw Erin and could not believe that it was true. Erin was flying in the clouds, thinking about her problems and her transformation into a monster. Luna quickly jumped up, afraid that the fighter found out that she was a monster. Erin advised Luna not to move as her wounds had not fully healed. The girl also thought about what happened to Naro and whether Chen's boyfriend killed her. When Luna saw Erin's syringe, she was afraid that the girl would torture her. But Erin diligently took care of Luna and ended up receiving such terrible treatment for herself. Naro's friend couldn't believe that her main rival would take care of her. Erin pretended she didn't know anything about Luna's power and said she was doing Naro a favor by courting her. After all, only the king's son could save humanity, and even if the moon was safe. Meanwhile, on the city street, M1 fighters dealt with the monsters. The guys already wanted to return to headquarters in order to report on their work. Suddenly they saw in front of them a huge monster that appeared out of nowhere. With its mouth open, it growled at the fighters, preparing to devour them whole. The M1 agents rushed to run when they saw that a whole crowd of monsters was coming towards them. They ran without looking back because they understood that they could not cope with these monsters. Naro stood on the roof of the house, observing everything that was happening in the city, when suddenly he quickly jumped from the roof to help his fighters deal with the demons. The main character was angry that the lives of people dear to him were worth nothing to these creatures. The guy immediately went into battle, using his ice flame powers. He didn't understand why the demon would destroy everything around him, and he didn't think if he could defeat them. But Naro understood that he was the reason for what was happening around him. And with his royal strength, the main character was ready to kill anyone, even the most huge and powerful monster. Naro realized that it was he who needed to put an end to this whole multi-year battle. The main character was confident that he would achieve his happy ending. The place where the battle took place no longer looked like a city. Not a single whole house could be found there. Naro continued to fight for the life of himself and all humanity and the memory of loved ones. He was surprised every time he saw more and more new monsters. The main character froze monsters with his icy flame even in flight, and the crowd of monsters continued to pass into the human world. The captain of the demon world flew on a dragon to the portal to assess the situation. The man was interested in why there was no news yet because the gates had already opened a long time ago. But the whole point was that people began to gradually push back the monsters. The captain was not happy with this news, because it was a serious matter. The son of the former king is fighting against the demons, and they do not know how strong he is. The blue demon suggested that the main character could come to the world of monsters and kill everyone, when suddenly the captain shut his mouth so that he would not say much. The demon dared to talk about the former king, and the power of his offspring under the current captain, which he did not like. The man reacted harshly to the blue monster's words and forced him to shut up, otherwise something bad might happen. Suddenly the captain's hand became an ice rock and he cut the monster's head in half. The demons feared the king's son more than their leader who controlled them. But the man motivated the creatures well so that they would not forget in whose hands their lives are. And so that everyone, even the smallest and ugliest demon, remembers that this man is the king of the world of monsters. When Boss M1 was looking through the cameras, he saw the state of the secret room. He did not expect Aaron to betray them, apparently considering himself too self-confident. The whole situation had to be taken under control, because if there was a leak of information, the man would be finished. The situation in the city was difficult, and it was impossible to return even one agent to headquarters. The captain thought that the people were losing, but one of the workers reported that Agent M1 was successfully resisting the monsters. From the video, they identified the main character because he was the only one who fought the monsters well. And the whole situation shocked the boss, because no one thought that everything would turn out like this. Naro continued to stand for the city and population, fighting every ugly demon. Suddenly, a huge octopus wrapped its tentacles around the guy's hand. The main character got angry and realized that he needed to act using a different method. Thanks to his power of icy flame, the guy turned the monster into a huge ice flow. The muzzle and parts of the body began to slowly freeze, making it impossible to fight further. During the entire period of hostility, Naro killed a lot of demons. It was even unknown where he got so much strength and energy. The boss, seeing the power of the ice flame from the camera, was very surprised. But Naro was not the only one who fought for the city. Kum and Seihi were also nearby. They continued to destroy the monsters, but there were more and more of them. The Godfather could not cope with this, so he wanted to quickly give up and get out of there. But Seiha's strength was also running low, and she wanted to take a break. While Kum was chatting with Seihi, telling him how cool he was, the strongest demon Chen appeared on their doorstep. The girl recognized him and reacted with fear to his arrival to them. Kum had only seen the demon in the news, having never encountered it before. Chen approached the guy and the girl, but what his motives were is unknown. Seihi was determined to neutralize the dangerous monster, because it was Code 9. The girl, using her iron hands, ran angrily to hit him, but Chen was stronger than them, and with one movement he stopped Seihi in his tracks. The fighter flew towards the cave after being hit by the monster. The impact was so strong that dents and cracks appeared in the wall. Kum called out to Seihi to find out about her condition, and became very angry, preparing to kill this demon for the girl. The agent was about to finish Chen off, but first tried to confuse him. And now he had already approached the monster from behind in order to unexpectedly strike. But Chen was always one step ahead and was able to outrun the M1 agent with ease. The Godfather did not have time to come to his senses when the demon grabbed him by the head and began to beat him on the ground. Seiha had absolutely no strength left, but she still tried to get up to continue what she had started. When the girl saw what was happening, she realized that she was unlikely to cope alone. The demon wanted to kill Kum right in front of Seiha to show what would happen to her. Chen set the agent on fire so that he would suffer and die while feeling severe pain. The monster asked to call Naro. Then he promised to kill Seihi painlessly. The demon was stronger than anyone the girl had ever fought before. The fighter was thinking about what to do in this difficult situation, because it was unlikely that she would be able to stay alive. The godfather wanted to stop the girl, telling her to run away from there while she had the opportunity. But Seihi could not help but punish the one who did such a terrible thing to her friend. And having gathered all her strength and prepared her armor, the girl was ready to strike back. She was never going to run away. She just wanted to take revenge for everything that this freak had done. Chen grabbed Seiya's armor and began to break it down into a non-functional state. The demon pinned Agent M1 to the wall with his foot and grabbed her arm with his hands. He did this so that the girl would suffer and tore off her armor right along with her hand. But when a person dies, his body does not disappear, which means the M1 agents were also subjected to society's experiments. Seihi, with great pain and a desire to kill the reptile, was ready for anything. The girl understood that she was unlikely to cope with the strongest demon, but still tried to finish him off, even with one hand. But everything was useless, and Chen pierced Seiha's body with his hand, leaving her no chance of survival. She fell to the ground from the beatings of the demon because she could no longer fight him. Seihi hoped that at least Naro would defeat this terrible demon and kill him forever. The situation in the city was unchanged, everything around was burning, and monsters continued to attack people. M1 agents continued to save people from monsters, risking their lives. They understood that if they stayed there, they were unlikely to survive and their squad would be destroyed. Monsters continued to arrive from the other world, not giving people a peaceful life. But support was soon to come to the agents, and they continued to defend themselves. One of the fighters was confident that they could hold out for another 3 minutes until reinforcements. But it was all in vain, because the monsters were much stronger than ordinary people. And then the main character appeared. He wanted to find Chen. A guy from the M1 Society advised Naro to leave, because it was dangerous to be there. The main character approached the monster so that he called one of the main demons. Naro only asked where Chen was, but there was no answer. While the monster stopped, the M1 agents had a chance to escape from there and stay alive. The monster seemed to be afraid of Naro, and therefore stood rooted to the spot with its mouth open. But still, without answering the guy, the monster thought that he could defeat the king's son. And then the main character entered the battle so as not to endanger himself and the M1 agents. Naro set the conditions. If the monster does not call Chen, then the guy will kill again and again. And Naro will kill monsters until Chen himself comes to him. Immediately, with his icy flame, the main character pierced this ugly monster right through. The soldiers could not understand what was happening because everything around was covered with ice. And one of the agents remembered that there was once a rumor that the one who put an end to the war with monsters had great power. And indeed, Naro was the only person who possessed the power of ice flames. At this time in the company of M1, the captain was considering the personal file of the protagonist. And there were no other options to find a future, only one. The boss thought for a long time whether he should do this, but still stole the blood test of the main character. After all, his blood was a special DNA sample with which one could be saved. The captain urgently boarded the helicopter to get away from this hell. He quickly sat down and ordered to take off immediately because there was absolutely no time to wait. The helicopter's propeller accelerated and they were ready to take off, when suddenly they came across a flying monster who was ready to kill them. The boss was very scared and ordered the pilot to quickly shoot at these demons. All this was useless, because the monster was stronger than any technique. From its mouth, the monster released a burst of fire to engulf the helicopter. The pilot and captain were very scared, but nothing could be done. And the helicopter exploded right in the sky, destroying everyone and everything to the last drop. And Chen continued to observe everything that was happening from the side without interfering. This is what the hatred of people for monsters and monsters for people looked like. The agents, despite their fear, continued to fight the demons. The demons continued to destroy everything around that people had built for so long. Many lost their loved ones with tears in their eyes, but nothing could be done. Chen believed that there would be no winner in this war, because they were doomed to eternal contempt. Suddenly, not far from the guy, a huge block of ice appeared, which immediately made it clear where the king's son was. Chen was very amused by this because he was glad to finally meet Naro again. And Chen rode the monster towards the main character to finally put an end to it. And Naro continued to fight and kill huge monsters that were beyond the control of the agents. Despite how much Naro had already fought alone, he did not give up and continued to go to the end. After all, it probably took a lot of strength to open the gate. And Chen still admitted that the power of the king and his son was very great. Therefore, the demon was ready to make every effort to destroy the main character. The guy was glad to finally wait for Chen because he came there only for him. The main character began to climb the house with great speed in order to confuse the monster. The demon with his fiery power rushed after the king's son. And a huge monster with sharp teeth also went to fight with him. No one could even imagine how much Naro had lost to gain such power. There was only anger in his eyes, It was clear that now everything would be decided. The main character froze the monster that came with the demon, not giving him the opportunity to even try to kill the guy. The monster froze even in the position in which it had stopped before, and Chen looked and realized that this was a barrier blocking monsters, the cold of which penetrated right under the skin and was like a knife blade. Nero wanted to freeze the demon too, because it was an excellent option to get rid of him. But however, Chen calculated everything and, because of his fiery flame, did not get caught in the ice flame. The decisive moments had arrived, and only a few minutes remained until the end of the battle. Each fighter put in a lot of effort to get to the level they were at now. And then there was a flash where two completely different forces came into equal collision with each other, and it was all over.